What's going on, everyone? It is the Astrolabe. I am here, your host and humble narrator, Matthew Erickson, ready to guide you through the twists and the turns of the news cycle today. A whole bunch of different interesting stories. Some of these are from today, some of them are not. But my wife says, "Wasn't sure you were going to get it in on time." That's what she said. Yes, there was some delays. We've got some rolling big old thunderstorms that are uh, hitting us repeatedly, bludgeoning us, and then we had some 4-year-old little boy adventures this evening. And this is the only reason I'm going this late is because I've got 4 tabs or 4 windows worth of tabs, and this is just how much time it took to put everything together. I need to think a little bit about some of the stuff I wanted to talk about tonight, and carefully prepare some tabs, some tweets, some thoughts, some articles from different people, and we're gonna have a fun one. This one, I guarantee you that I'm gonna be here past midnight my time. We're just a few minutes short of 10 p.m. right now, so hopefully you guys are ready for a good one. Get yourselves buckled in, and perhaps you also have a lit pillow installed, and let's get a little caffeine going. Mm, mm. Man, I haven't had a rock star in a while. That's good. That's good stuff. That brings back some memories. I used to drink these pretty frequently. Remember when there used to be like, I don't know, there's like 5 different energy drinks that you could choose from, and each one of them just had their flavor. You could choose a Red Bull, you could choose a Rockstar, you could choose a Monster, and now there's just like an entire wing of the freezer section or the cooler section at a convenience store is just loaded with all sorts of different types of energy drinks, and then you've got I remember when they first came out with the 5 hour energies, and they were like, I don't know, a dollar maybe. The whole idea here was that like you're going to get an energy shot. So if you don't want the energy drink, you could just get an energy shot, and you just do a quick little and knock it back. And now there's a whole bunch of different 5 hour energy or energy shot type products, and they're as much or more than the energy drinks themselves. What's the demand? Do people buy these? Are these like like the boner pills and stuff that they just sit there, but nobody ever purchases them? You can actually go and you see the dust on them while they're sitting there. I don't know. But there was a time there for, I don't know, a year maybe, when the 5 hour energies were like a buck, and an energy drink was $2. So yeah, I could grab a quick little shot and get on with it. But no, man, I'm not going to pay as much or more. I'm not going to pay frickin' $4 for an energy shot. You out of your mind? I'm going to I'll pay $2 for a rock star. Mm. The Iceman says sugar-free Celsius kids don't even know the struggle. Kids these days, man, they don't know. They don't know just how good they have it. There's a such a wide assortment of variously colored, bright, flashy Zog slurp that they can that they can choose from. We had it rough. We only had a couple, and they didn't taste very good, but but we drank them, and so now we think they taste good, even though they still don't taste good, and nobody would start drinking them now. I've had Celsius a couple of times, and I, I I think I probably went through like a case or two uh, over the course of a couple of weeks, and discovered that they give me headaches. I don't know exactly what it is, but um, yeah. So I don't drink Celsius for the most part. I try to drink stuff that has sugar added. The sugar free ones are whatever sweeteners and stuff that they add to them generally aren't that great for you, and the sugar is just good for you. So I generally try to stick to the ones with sugar in them, but I will drink a C4 or a Rain. Those are the white gummy bear Rain is I don't know if you can top it. The only thing that might top it might be like a C4. Like there's some of the C4s, especially you get that tingle going, kind of like a niacin tingle. Um, yeah, anyways, this has been your energy drink segment here to start the show. My wife says back in Grandpa Matt's day, he had to walk uphill both ways for a watermelon Red Bull. Correction, I had to walk uphill both ways for an ordinary Red Bull. There was no watermelon Red Bull. I am old enough to remember when there was no such thing as a watermelon Red Bull. All you got was original flavor. And maybe there was a diet one or a sugar-free one. I don't know. Typically the sugar-free, I can taste the difference in it. I don't generally prefer it. You aren't energy drinking if your feet aren't sweating. Yeah. I chase my energy drinks with energy drinks. I probably go through like, I don't know, 3 or 4 a day, and I drink 6 to 8 cans of Coke a day. I am caffeine and sugar maxing. Volps Persona says, "Did you get over your skull spasm, Matt?" Yes, I did. I do believe that it is. Maybe there's a couple 5% left or something, kind of lingering there in the back, but definitely feeling better now. Just in time for the weekend. All right, let's get started. So, first of all, we have to set the mood. Put on a little candle and get some sweet scents in the air and prepare yourself for mood content.
Self-centered walking dead trash, and we're such zombies, we're such self-centered crap that we don't even notice hell itself rising up against us, and my very spirit is just absolutely ready at every level to we're under attack, people. Where is the animating contest of liberty? Where is the spirit lifted up against these people? All right, I'm sorry. I focus in on the evil. It really freaks me out, and I don't get like that a lot, but I know that the enemy spirit, and I start talking about it, and it just gets to me, because my spirit gets close to that evil, and I feel it, and my whole spirit just goes, They call that crazy. That's not crazy. That's my will, my human spirit saying, crush those that would hurt the innocent. Go after the enemy. Build a civilization. Be honorable. Crush the snakes under your feet. Get behind me, Satan.
I'm half tempted to replace Hulk at the end with this clip right here. This is it. This is the spirit. Shout out to Surf, a poster of bangers. What do you guys think? Should we keep Hulk? Do we keep Hulk at the end? How long do we let that ride? Is this a permanent Astrolabe feature that we have the Hulk outro at the end, or do we replace Hulk with the Alex Jones clip, or perhaps we have both, and I just choose which one I do. There's an interesting idea. Keep Hulk, says Han Pritcher. We'll let that one simmer. So you have the keep Hulk. Okay, yeah, we'll keep Hulk. You have all the the Republicans took advantage of the podcast bros. They made their podcast rounds, and they they got their message out. They sidestepped the media. So we need our own podcast bros, say the Democrats. So they send Pete Buttigieg. They're really trying to make this Pete Buttigieg thing happen. They send him on to chat with the flagrant bros, and Akash says Pete Buttigieg might have regretted coming on the pod.
I mean, right here in New York, right, there are so many major transportation projects going on.
Second Avenue Subway.
Second Avenue Subway.
That's Second Avenue Subway we don't want. Dude, I remember nobody on the Upper East Side uses the subway.
I don't know New York geography as well as you do, but the really crazy thing about the Second Avenue Subway is the tunnel's already there. It's been there for 50 years.
Well, just because there's a tunnel, you don't need to put a subway. Like, I think,
how are the Jews going to get around?
This is why I don't come on these podcasts.
Now, what's interesting, you've got one of the guys from the podcast who's tweeting this out and adding the I forgot the name of the show, the Larry David show, and adding that to it. This would not have happened with one of the Republican guys. Like when they talked to JD Vance or Donald Trump, they wouldn't have produced something like this. These guys know what's going on. The flagrant guys, they may be slop, but they're a very good temperature gauge of the normie. The fact that they would produce this highlighting that and dunking on him. Yes, curb your enthusiasm. Thank you. Thank you, Slosher. The fact that they would actually produce this and push this out there shows that they know what's going on right now. They know who's ascendant. They know who the what do you call it? Like not the jester, but the like the guy that everyone makes fun of. The guy that just gets shit on everyone. That's the Democrats. Yeah, nose to the wind, definitely. I wanted to respond to something here. TC said, where did it go? He asked about, he's okay, is there Streamlabs or whatever link to donate that's not Google? No, not at this point. I might be setting something like that up here. But for now, the best way is if you don't want to give money to Google, then you can, there's a Buy Me a Coffee and a Cash App link in the description. You can also subscribe to the King Pilled Substack. It's like $7 a month, I think. And right now, I think it allows you to comment on the post, but I just put it there as a way if people wanted to support. And then the King Pill Discord. Those are the best ways to support that don't involve giving money directly to Google. Let's keep it going here. So on the subject of the Democrats flailing and searching for an identity, here's this very just profound, poignant tweet from Patrick Casey. I like Patrick Casey. He's a good guy. First of all, he's reacting to this clip of Tim Walz. Here's Mr. No Balls himself. Look at that face. You like imagine looking at this face here and like ignoring what he's about to say, which is just icing on the cake. Imagine looking at someone who produces these sort of images and thinking, "Oh, this is someone that people will trust and respect."
I knew I was on the ticket, I would argue, because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved people's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swing states, with the exception of Minnesota, we didn't get enough of those. I knew I
I could code talk. I could code talk with them, guys. I was the permission structure. Oh yeah, you could be a white guy and you could fix your truck. And you look up to Tim Walz naturally. Which is really, it's actually kind of a remarkable admission that I was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck. I could put them at ease. It did the exact opposite. Yes, Twilight Knight, why would you admit this? He just admitted it. He just said it. What was that old meme? Like, I worked on this for so long and this story for so long, and then he just tweeted it out. He just said it. The nomination of Tim Walz for vice president by the Democrats was done explicitly as an outreach mechanism to white men. This is how out of touch they are. They have no mental model for the people that they've suddenly realized they need. It turns out, if you take the single most consequential voting demographic in the country and sustainably alienate them for several decades, suddenly you lose track of them. You lose them. You don't get them anymore. And Patrick Casey has a great point. He says, today's Democratic Party is so alienated from working class white guys that it's talking about them in the same way Republicans have historically talked about black voters. Like they're so distant that reaching them becomes an exercise in crude pandering. True in both cases. This is such a great point. And it's such a fascinating irony to this. The Republicans became known over the last couple of decades for doing these really crude pandering schemes toward minorities. Get your token minority up there, and he's just some sort of lazy stereotype or something. And oh, there you go. Now they'll look at him. Oh yeah, I want to vote for that guy because he looks like me. And so, oh yeah, just find some white guy from let's see, Midwest. Okay, let's see, white guy, Midwest, military history. Oh, okay, perfect. A football coach. Oh yeah, guys love football. That'll be great. Okay, so we're looking for a guy who will represent white people, and we land on a creepy old guy with a bunch of weird ties to China with, I don't know what I could, I'm a public figure, like just commentary. Can I say slanderous, libelous things? A guy who's pretty obviously a pedophile. And Oh yeah, this will work. This is the ticket right here. Annoying, cackling, psychopathic, drunk wine aunt with a weird racial background who grew up in Canada, and this old faggot. Just they have no theory of mind for the white male. They've spent so long being completely hostile and caricaturing it. Caricaturing. I think that's what it is. Caricaturing. My brain is backfiring here. Treating white men like caricatures, creating a caricature of white men and attacking it. That now they literally don't even they don't even know what white men think or value or care about. And this is the definition of being hoisted on one's own petard or hoisted on one's own retard, as the case may be. Okay, so I've got a few things here from the White House. We have some lighthearted stuff, some less lighthearted stuff. Let's start with some lighthearted stuff. I cannot. The Democrats have no theory of mind for the white man, the young white man. The Trump administration is comprised of young white men. This is the contrast could not be more clear here. The White House Twitter account, the actual White House, the White House Twitter account tweeted it. Yes, Slutty Milk knows exactly where this is going. They posted this to their YouTube account, and the White House account tweeted it out. Look at this. Am I easy to please? Maybe I'm easy to please. The Trump White House created a lo-fi MAGA video to relax/study to. It's scrolling through promise made, promise kept examples with an animation of President Trump signing orders. The White House says this is a 24/7 stream. The White House has set up a 24/7 stream of a at first I thought this was Ghibli, but I don't think it's Ghibli. It's something. It's like it has a little bit of almost a Norman Rockwell-ish aspect to it, but still cartoonized. But an AI photo of Donald Trump signing executive orders with just promise kept, promise made, promise kept, going by 24/7. This is. It's actually good stuff, too. The Zoomers are sending their best. Yeah, right. TC says the White House media Zoomers have been absolutely wilding, almost pushing it for me. Yeah. They're trying to compete with EWBSX. Yeah. You know what? Mr. President, sir, I kneel. I submit. My project is nothing compared to yours. Please do not let EWBSX take ears away from the White House's celebration of Trump's promises made and promises kept. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Download the EWBSX app. If you don't know what it is, go download it and listen to it. And look at him. Here we go. Sorry, Eastwood. Hopefully this doesn't wake you up, but we gotta. It's gotta happen. Oh, haven't gotten one of those in too long. The great GigaJew himself. Logan Hall says the great Stephen Miller standing in front of his deported illegals collection like it's a trophy case. Incredible. Look at the man. The man has dedicated his life to this. He has made this his all-consuming passion, and he's getting everything he could have ever wanted. Look how proud he is. You guys are cracking me up. Lo-fi hip-hop beats to dismantle the globalists, too. Oh, we need to, the cyberbully may need to hire some of you guys as script writers, man. Gotta catch them all. That's right. And Someone posted this on Reddit. The White House lawn under Trump now covered with yard signs featuring arrested illegal immigrants. Someone commented and said, "This is the equivalent of approaching a medieval kingdom and seeing heads on spikes." And of course, it is the GigaJew. He is the GigaJew. He is our GigaJew. GigaJew the Impaler. How many times can I say GigaJew in 1 minute? How could you not be happy with this, man? How can you not just find the joy in this? Now, the dark side of it, what makes it so joyful. This is the dark side of it from the White House account.
My name is Angie Morphine Vargas, and I'm mother to Ruben Morphine. He was executed in the streets of Salinas in 1990. 34 years later, I could still cry for him like if it was yesterday.
My name is Maria Herrera Vega, and I'm the mother of Marine and Border Patrol agent Javier Vega Jr. Our son, who went by Harvey, was murdered August the 3rd, 2014.
My name is Chris Odette. I'm an angel father. My daughter, Krisha, was killed September 12th, 2014 by an illegal alien in Rockwall, Texas.
This is my son Ryan and his girlfriend, both poisoned to death by illicit fentanyl. I can't bring my son back, but we are doing all of this to save the future Americans from being poisoned to death by fentanyl.
My name is Agnes Gibney. This is my son Ronald Da Silva, who was murdered by a previously reported criminal illegal alien gang member.
My name is Angel Mom Miriam Mendoza. This is my son, Sergeant Brandon Mendoza of the Mesa, Arizona Police Department, who was killed on May 12, 2014 by a repeat illegal criminal. Thank everybody in this administration for finally paying attention to criminals who harm Americans.
We thank the Trump administration from the bottom of our hearts.
Without them, there would be no justice for my daughter.
We're finally getting some justice in this country for our children.
This right here is what should be living here in America, not criminals that are coming in right now.
This is as important as it's the wrong way to frame it. This is part of the mass deportation effort. Part of the mass deportation effort is creating the social justification for it. Yes, you can just do things, and yes, they are just doing things. But in order to make those things stick, you need to create a sea change. This can't just be a policy of a single administration that comes in and makes a big dent, and then eventually it all just gets undone again. You have to create a psychological, emotional change in the hearts of the people themselves, so that trying to replicate this sort of thing in the future is just politically untenable. It's not even possible. You have to prevent that possibility, not on a policy level, not through just mere threats of force, but you have to prevent that from arising again by retraining the mind of the people. So that's what all of this, like the videos of them being chained up and hauled away on planes, the memes, the giblified memes of the woman crying, getting arrested, all the faces, the new Topps trading cards posted in the White House lawn. That's what all of this is for. This is all to hit people in the face with it, to draw on their heartstrings, and to reinforce on a cultural level that this sort of thing cannot be tolerated. It must not be tolerated. What we need, honestly, there needs to be some kind of a monument erected. Declare the Biden administration like an age of, or a period of invasion. This was an actual invasion. This was a traitorous invasion facilitated by the Biden administration as a matter of formal policy. And here are the victims of this invasion. We're going to memorialize them, and we're going to construct a monument with a prayer garden. That's the sort of policy that is, you might look at it and be like, I don't care, just get the people out of my country. No, this is as important as getting the people out of the country. Because the people could just be brought back into the country again. That's the whole point. So you can set up the bureaucratic, the legal pretext for preventing it from happening again. But it was illegal when they did it in the first place. So just making it extra illegal isn't going to seal the deal. You have to completely reorient the American perspective and treat this as the great atrocity that it has been. The messaging out of the White House on this has been just the people who are complaining that there hasn't been enough deportations, or that there's not going to be enough deportations, or that the White House doesn't mean it or something. You guys are completely out to fucking lunch. You have lost the plot entirely. You're like you're shadow boxing with your own imagination. This is the most aggressively immigration restrictionist administration that I don't know. I'm not completely schooled up on 100 years ago what the immigration policies were. But I can tell you in my lifetime, there has never been this much of an immigration restriction to go with the deportations. I don't think you realize the resources that are required to deport 20 to 40 million people, however many. That's a massive, massive undertaking. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to require a buildup. So what you're looking for right now is not all of them having been deported already. What you're looking for right now is the evidence that they are building up. Necessarily, because they've got to go through all these bureaucratic processes. They have to do it legitimately in order to make it sustainable. And that's exactly what you're seeing. And you're seeing a just relentless drumbeat on this over and over and over again from the administration. And most of all, from the great GigaJew himself. I will hear no slander of him. I don't care. This isn't me being Semitophilic or philosemitic, Semitophilic, whichever way. I recognize that this is a great man. I don't care what his ethnicity is. I don't care what his heritage is. This is a great man who is doing good work, who is literally saving lives.
And then one on Abrego Garcia, please. The administration is reportedly inquiring about his return. Is that to check a box for compliance, or does President Trump want him back on U.S. soil, or both?
So, as Secretary Rubio said yesterday in the cabinet meeting, this administration is not going to publicly discuss the inside details of our foreign policy and negotiations with a foreign country. And in particular, we are not going to allow a district court judge to try to become the Secretary of State. Secretary Rubio is the one who, under his leadership and direction at the State Department, is managing the day-to-day relationship with El Salvador. Let's just take a moment, number one, to express our gratitude to El Salvador for agreeing to take some of the most dangerous terrorists off of American streets and to put them into a safe environment where they cannot continue to engage in acts of terrorism or coordination with the Maduro regime. You may have seen recently an FBI assessment that was unclassified that said that the Maduro regime is using and planning to use Trinidad terrorists to carry out assassination plots on American soil. Now, very few in this room covered that. I'll let you all ask yourselves why you didn't cover it and why your editors didn't assign that story to you. Something I think you should think about on your own. But this is a earth-shattering piece of news. The Biden administration imported a terrorist army that our own FBI assesses is planning assassination strikes on American soil against critics of the Maduro regime. Those are the terrorists that President Trump is finding and apprehending that our Democrat judges and Democrat activists are trying to keep on U.S. soil. Trinidad has the same legal status as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. MS-13 has the same legal status as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. These are foreign terrorists operating on our soil. And our gratitude to El Salvador for agreeing to take custody of these terrorists is immense. With respect to the case that you mentioned, there's now even been more evidence that has been made public of this person's violent, repeated threats and assaults against his spouse. Someone who had repeated, documented human trafficking and human smuggling offenses. Somebody that has extensively documented membership in MS-13, a terrorist organization, and of course he had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. This is a person that was a clear and present danger to the safety of the American people. And it is a sad reflection on the state of our media and many of the outlets represented in this room that you obsessively try to shill for this MS-13 terrorist. Well, no coverage occurred in your papers about any of the Americans that were raped and tortured and murdered by the illegals that Biden was importing into our country. You know, you talk about due process. The Biden administration made the decision to give
this is where he really starts cooking.
Extensive due process to 2 trained Nicaragua terrorists that were apprehended at the border just a couple years ago. They were 2 gentlemen. They were from Venezuela. They were members of trained Nicaragua. The Biden administration, Border Patrol, apprehended them and made the decision to provide them with extensive due process, put them onto a program known as supervised release, and put them on ankle monitors so that they could go through a lengthy legal judicial determination as to whether these legal aliens who had just set foot on U.S. soil might want to live in the United States for the rest of their lives. What was the result of that decision? What was the result of that choice that was made? Those 2 men kidnapped a young girl named Jocelyn Ungary from her family. They beat her, they sexually assaulted her, they tortured her, they stripped her, they murdered her, and they dumped her body. That is what the Biden administration's policy was. Most of your papers never covered her story when it happened. To the extent that you covered it at all, it was because President Trump forced you to cover it by highlighting it repeatedly over and over again. He had to shame you into covering it. And each and every one of you that sides over and over again with these MS-13 terrorists, to the extent that you have the financial means to do so, you all choose to live in condos or homes or houses as far away from these kinds of gangbangers as you possibly can. If I offered any one of you a rent-free home with no taxes to pay in any of these gang neighborhoods, and I said your neighbors are MS-13 terrorists or Mexican mafia or Sinaloa cartel or trained Nicaragua, I couldn't pay you to live there. But yet you, with your coverage, are trying to force innocent Americans to have these people as their neighbors, and that one day their daughter may be abducted from their home and raped and murdered. So you're not going to get an ounce of sympathy from this administration or President Trump for the terrorists who've invaded our homes and our country.
Every single time that he shows up and talks to the media, it's a struggle session for them. That's what they're being subjected to. They're being subjected to bludgeoning and shaming and humiliation. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. And to anybody counter-signaling this, if you are counter-signaling what the administration is doing on immigration and Stephen Miller specifically, you're revealing yourself. You're not a friend. Probably not an ally. You're subversive. Super chat, $5 from Seasider. He says, we need a side-by-side of Miller and Baron Harkonnen's Mentat. Yes, that's really good. That's really good. I'm surprised I haven't seen that yet. Then $2 from See You in the Camp. Zog Slurp. That's right, Zog Slurp. And then another one here, a little further up, $10 from good friend of the show, TC. He says, for more bourbon and ethno-guesser. And that reminded me that I forgot to set the goal at the beginning here. So, another one just came in. So we got one toward the goal, and it's also from TC. Another $10. He's going to tell my kids bedtime stories about the tales of the Southern invasion and the fearless bald patriot known as GigaJew that made it his life's work to put a stop to it. That is exactly the attitude. That is what I'm talking about. So that is super chat number 1 toward our goal of 5 $10 or more super chats. And if we do that, then I will test my racism skills with a round of Ethno Guesser. Thank you for the super chats already, guys. Let's keep it going here. Alex Jones called him the lie devastator in action. And this rhetoric is compelling to the normies. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Battle of Shiloh that's happening on the internet right now. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. The women are getting fed up. The more that these sorts of things happen, the more sorts of stories like this that get pushed out there, and the media is not going to do it. So the administration is going to have to go above and beyond to do it. And they are. And you can see in the poll numbers that people are not just in favor of deportations and curtailing immigration, they're increasingly in favor of it. And then you've got excellent lieutenants like Ron DeSantis here, who are, Ron here is setting the model for all the other GOP governors, or really Democrat governors, if they really want to advance their political career, get a Democrat governor in a moderate state and have them take the same tack as a old Ronnie boy here. And I've got to give a shout out to Taylor Brown, often chatter here, loyal member of the King Pill Discord. Number 1, because he has just brought in, or his wife, I suppose. It was a team effort. They've just brought in another young prince into the world. So shout out to them. Prayers for the young family and many years for the young king. And also, he has been beating this drum for a long time about the ways that they can get the National Guard involved and contributing to the National Guards involved in contributing to the mass deportation effort. And here we now have Mr. Ron DeSantis talking about it. Are these guys lingering in our who are you? If you're in the King Pill Discord and you're close to, I don't know, DeSantis or the administration, our ideas, the stuff we talk about, keeps winding up coming out of the mouths of prominent Republican leaders. So those of you who are lurking, who are doing the Lord's work, we salute you.
We have both a National Guard and a State Guard who are used to responding to different types of contingencies. We're ready, willing, and able to take it to the next level. We have submitted plans to DHS to say, if this is approved, we will go off to the races, and we will be able to do really from soup to nuts, from apprehension to detention, even putting some of our people in the National Guard in line to serve as immigration judges to process this. We can do it. And I'd also say, you hear a lot about due process. We have tens of thousands of illegal aliens in Florida at a minimum that have already been issued final orders of removal, and there's hundreds of thousands of them throughout the United States of America. So they've had a lot of process. They've been ordered to be removed. They have not complied with those removal orders. And that's a very, very high priority for our state efforts to continue to identify those individuals and make sure that they're returned to their country of origin. So I want to thank the federal agencies that have really led the way. It's been a welcome change here in the state of Florida, and also thank all of our state and local partners who worked really, really hard for this operation, but have been doing this now for many months, and we're proud to have been the first state out of the gate, but we view this as just the beginning. We think that the best is still yet to come, so thanks for everyone that's been involved.
He's so good as a governor. The entire presidential run was such a it's so obvious that he didn't want to do it. His heart wasn't in it. And he just lit right up as soon as he could get back to his governor work. I didn't even know that it was possible to use National Guard members as immigration judges, but this is the sort of creative thinking that I'm talking about. Another $10 super chat. Got some leaf bucks from Slosher. He says, was it Jason who called it that women would demand that men fix it? The white women, mothers, have had it. That was Charles Spadil. Jason has often echoed it. That was Charles Spadil. And we'll talk about the Battle of Shiloh still here in a little bit, but I gotta give a shout out to my boy Josh Ham for depicting it for us. Fix it. The time is going to come when the women just look to their men and say, fix it. I don't care how you do it. I don't care how the job gets done. Don't come back and report to me until the job is done. Just get it done. I don't care how. I don't care how, don't give me the details. Spare me the details. Just go do the job. Get it done. That's your job now. And men will react to that. When the woman looks at the man and says, fix it, the man will start fixing it. More on that in a little bit. Here's the president himself. I've got a few different clips of him today. Some of these are just some of the best clips I've ever heard from him. This is a good one. This is not one of the best ones. This is a good one. Shout out to Seth J. Levy on Twitter. He's a good follow, especially for the stuff regarding the trade war, the tariffs, China. And he's been a great follow. I've had notifications on for him for a while now. The Reckoning is his name. At Seth J. Levy. He says, regarding Trump, he's not going to concede to their terminology. Smart. This was posted by the Rapid Response account from one of the interviews that Trump just did recently.
All I can say is this. If you're going to have 21 million people and we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't. Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law
give
is the law, sir. The law is the law, and you're
the law
sworn
doesn't
to
say anything
uphold it.
about trials.
No, not trials. Hearings. I said
These
hearings.
people came in. They're not citizens. They came in illegally. They came into our country illegally.
And
We have to get them out.
There's a legal process for that.
I can't. Sure, and we follow the legal process. I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out, and we have to get them out fast.
Really bad guys. But in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they get a process that we have to get them out. My president, folks. We'll talk a little bit more about the whole philosophical debate behind all of that here in a little bit, but I got a couple more headlines to get through. This from Gateway Pundit. Laura Loomer uncovers a massive conflict of interest involving race-baiting federal judge who ordered border agents to not detain illegal aliens without a warrant. So they're illegal aliens, and she says they can't detain them unless they go get a warrant for every single one of them. One of the most radical left judges involved in sabotaging President Trump's immigration agenda has been Loomered in brutal fashion. As the Gateway Pundit previously reported, U.S. District Judge Jennifer L. Thurston, a Biden nominee, issued an injunction on Tuesday barring Customs and Border Protection agents in the Eastern District of California from stopping illegal aliens without a warrant or proving that the person is a threat to flee before they can get a warrant. They're illegally here. They do not belong in the country. And you have to get a warrant to stop them, and you have to prove that they're a threat to flee before you could get a warrant. Thurston's decision came after several individuals were arrested in January during Border Patrol's Operation Return to Sender. Is that what it was actually called? Hold on a second. Was it actually called Operation Return to Sender? How have I not heard about this before? Oh my God, it actually was. Operation Return to Sender refers to an initiative used by various law enforcement agencies, including ICE and Border Patrol, to target and remove individuals from the country, particularly those with a history of criminal activity or those who've been previously deported. Oh my God, it's actually called Operation Return to Sender. That's incredible. This was just part of President Trump's smashing success in removing illegal aliens from the interior while locking down the southern border. Thurston wrote in her ruling that the Border Patrol, quote, engaged in conduct that violated well-established constitutional rights. Illegal aliens do not have constitutional rights. The Constitution was not written to protect the rights of the entire planet and every human being that was ever going to exist. Thurston next ordered the Border Patrol to submit a report every 60 days showing who is being held and who is arrested without warrants, along with the reasoning for both, until the lawsuit is resolved. She also whipped out the race card during a hearing a day before her final ruling, telling Trump administration attorneys that, quote, you just can't walk up to people with brown skin and say, give me your papers. I will counter with, you can just do things. Sorry, lady. Loomer has now revealed a massive conflict of interest involving Thurston. Thanks to her, we know Thurston's husband, Mark, is a, wait for it, multifamily real estate broker in California who has clients who are illegal aliens. This means that the Thurston family is getting rich off illegal labor, and she would almost certainly get an earful back home from her husband if she dared jeopardize the gravy train. How convenient that she limited her ruling to only areas that impact the family business. Mark Thurston also makes Instagram videos about how Trump's mass deportations and immigration policies are bad for businesses like his. Loomer also included one of the videos in her X post. I say arrest him. And this is something that, see, here's the utility of Laura Loomer. Think what you will about her. I don't think much, but she highlights a story like this, and then you get Trump Jr. bringing it to public attention, so you know that the administration knows about it. And here's another from the Daily Wire. Illegal aliens racked up a 9-figure bill at Texas hospitals in just 1 month. I thought this must be, I thought I must have read this wrong the first time I read it. A 9-figure bill just in Texas, just at Texas hospitals in a single month. Illegal aliens cost Texas hospitals more than $100 million in just a single month, brand new data from the Lone Star State shows. Texas hospitals are on the hook for a $121.8 million bill incurred by illegal aliens across 31,000 visits in November of 2024 alone, according to data collected by the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. The findings came after Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed an order directing THHSC to collect and provide quarterly data on the cost of illegal aliens to the state's hospitals and the number of visits from illegal aliens. The first full year of data will be released in January of 2026. Many of these illegal immigrants are straining the Texas hospital system, which is why Governor Abbott directed the Texas Health and Human Services Commission to begin assessing the cost of care, Abbott Press Secretary Andrew Mahalaris explained. Now Texas has reliable data on the dramatic financial impact that illegal immigration is having on our hospital system, he noted, also adding that President Donald Trump's deportation operations, quote, may also cause these healthcare costs to decline. You think? The Texas legislature is currently considering legislation that would turn Abbott's order into a state law requiring hospitals to provide the data. How about just eliminating all of those people from the country, and then you don't need to track the data? How like post rational is this notion that you have to create? The legislation needs to be created to force the hospitals to collect and provide data on the number of illegal aliens they're providing services for. Get them out. One 2023 report from Republicans on the House Homeland Security Committee found that illegal aliens similarly burdened the hospital systems of other states with large illegal alien populations. Florida hospitals incurred a $312 million bill because of illegal aliens in fiscal year 2023 and received just over $100 million in reimbursements. So they had a $212 million shortfall that the state just had to eat. And note, this is $312 million for the entire state of Florida for the entire year of 2023, where in November of 2024, it was $122 million total for the month for Texas. A single hospital in the border town of Yuma, Arizona, provided $26 million in uncompensated care to illegal aliens. Gee, I wonder why healthcare sucks. I wonder why going to the hospital is a terrible experience. I wonder why everything costs so much. I wonder why health insurance is completely fucked. I wonder why Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are all deeply underwater. That report estimated that Texas hospitals face anywhere from $597 million to $717 million in uncompensated healthcare costs for illegal aliens from 2006 to 2008. That's almost 20 years ago. One study from the Federation for American Immigration Reform estimated that illegal aliens cost the United States a total of $150 billion a year, even when factoring in tax revenue from illegal aliens. Which it's insane that it would even be possible or conceivable or realized that illegal aliens would actually pay taxes. But there are illegal aliens who do. And even when you factor them in, it still costs the country $150 billion a year. The cost of illegal immigration in the United States, FAIR says, has increased by billions of dollars in recent years. I bet. There's an interesting, I can't remember if I've brought this up on the show or not. We've talked about this in the King Pill Discord, but one of the guys in there has a very interesting theory, the Ghost Americans theory. I would tell you guys to stop me if I've said this already on here, but there's a delay. So the basic idea is that a lot of the if you imagined you have these NGO networks that are set up to facilitate this immigration, mass migration as big industry, and the numbers are so astronomical that there's a really good chance a lot of this there's like a financial motivation to this. There's the financial motivation, and then there's the voter roll fixing. And you don't actually need physical human bodies present in the country to accomplish those things. So if you allow 10, say you allow 10 people to come across the border, but then you record 15 people that came across the border, and each of them gets a social security number, and they get a debit card, and they get housing, and they get all this stuff. You don't actually have to have all of those people. There doesn't have to be a physical, like, flesh and blood person connected to those records. But it becomes a great way, if there's no auditing, if there's no management or no restriction on or checking payments or anything like that, you just say 5 people came across the border, you create 5 social security numbers, and you've got social security benefits fraud, you've got all the other sorts of you got Medicaid fraud, you've got and now you can also get them on the voter rolls, and you can cast a vote on their behalf when you have these big sophisticated vote collecting efforts. It actually would not be shocking to me to learn that kind of counterintuitively, that there actually hasn't been as many illegal aliens who physically have entered the country as some of the most aggressive estimates say. Like, those are the numbers that they're using to make those estimates could be very easily inflated, because the whole purpose of this was not just necessarily to get the people in the country, but to be able to tell the story that the people came in the country so that you can get access for the sake of real estate fraud and benefits fraud and election fixing and all these sorts of things. And honestly, if you think it, like, if you were to say, whatever, over the last 5 years that there was 40 million people who entered the country, this is kind of one of the numbers that gets thrown around a lot. If you think about what the actual impact that would have, I mean, there's lots of people who shouldn't be here. You definitely see the impact of them, but if you have 40 million people, that means you're talking like somewhere in the vicinity of, what is it, like 800,000 people per state being added. There are some states in the union that don't even have 800,000 people in them. So you'd have to say that those populations have more than doubled, like Wyoming or Nebraska or something. Those populations over the last 5 years have more than doubled. I don't think they have. And if they haven't, that means that those people got pushed into other people. So if you're saying like 40 million people came across in the last 5 years or something, you're basically saying that, like, I don't know, 5 Los Angeleses came into the country in the last 5 years. And yes, there's definitely an uptick. Yes, there's definitely a lot of illegals, but having like the population of Los Angeles double in 5 years, or the population of Dallas double in 5 years, I think it would be much more apparent than it actually is. So there's actually kind of a white pill if that's the case. If all of this was connected to these really sophisticated like voter fraud plus benefits fraud plus real estate fraud, all this stuff kind of chained together in this big organized industry, then like, if that was the motivation, you don't need the physical people to actually do that. You definitely need some. There definitely has been plenty who have been brought in, but it could be that, there was 10 million people who came in, and But on paper there was 25 million, or I'm just kind of pulling numbers out of my hat. But it's an interesting theory, the Ghost Americans theory. Shout out to a random username. You've seen him here in the chat a few times. He's the one who started chewing on that. Phil says, doesn't that lessen our case to deport them if it's not as bad as we think? I mean, in theory, it could. I still think, like, just deport as many as you possibly can. But I think it also means that the hidden effect of the self-deportations, because that's a thing that's sort of difficult to amass data for, I would imagine. There's going to be some people who have record of them self-deporting, but there's lots of people who are in the country. There's not really any record of them. They're just here, and eventually someone might find them, but they might decide, okay, I want to, I don't want to be found, so I'm just gonna self-deport. I think those numbers are probably way larger than most people realize. And between those and an actual, I mean, Trump said we have 21 million people to deport. So if their goal is to deport 21 million people, then by all means, yeah, if you deport 21 million people, and also at the same time, you've cut off new inflows, which they have, the border crossings are down to like 99.9%. So, between those things, this is why I'm very, very optimistic about the trajectory of the immigration situation. It's certainly going to be, it's not going to be smooth sailing anytime soon, but I'm optimistic about the trajectory. Now we've got some interesting news on Marco Grande. First of all, here's a clip of him in the all cabinet meeting. This is him. He's been like one of the most surprising people. I wasn't super exercised about him being appointed Secretary of State, but I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. There's going to be some that kind of suck, but whatever. He has been just on point the entire time. Here's another great example of it.
El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia as a formal request from this administration to make?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to. But I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
Mr. President, yesterday you told ABC News, Mr. President, you told ABC News yesterday that you could get Abrego Garcia back if you wanted to. Do you think President Bukele would turn you down if you made that request?
I really don't know. I know that he's been a great friend of our country. He's gotten a lot less money than this would take from us if we were going to build these jails and do what he's doing. And they run a very professional operation. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I really leave that to the lawyers, and I take my advice from Pam and everybody that is very much involved. They know the laws, and we follow the laws exactly.
I can't believe they're still asking these questions like this. Every single frickin' press conference, they're talking about this stupid Maryland man. I'm a pretty patient person, generally speaking. I don't get super riled up about, I'm like, yeah, whatever they're doing. I'm getting irritated about them constantly asking the same stupid question. My expectations are so low for you guys. And you can't, like, you think that this is some sort of winning issue, that you're just going to keep going back to this same story of this same guy over and over and over again. No matter how bad the story gets for you, no matter how much worse you start to look because of it, you're just going to keep doing it, huh? All right. So, Mike Waltz, not to be confused with Tim Walz, Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, he of the Signalgate drama, has been he's been reassigned. He is now the UN ambassador. And there is a history with UN ambassador being, like, first of all, think about what the Trump administration thinks of the large like multinational bureaucratic council organizations. Not a big fan. They don't seem to be super committed to the whole UN thing. And being appointed UN ambassador is sort of like this is a role that Nikki Haley had. This is something that Elise Stefanik was appointed for. And it's now something Mike Waltz is being moved over to. there's a trend there. These are all the people who are much more Iran hawkish or generally let's fight Israel's wars hawkish than Trump himself personally is. And so UN ambassador is kind of like a thing that you could do for someone who's been a toady, and you're just like, okay, let's just, here you go. Let's give you this this like token role that you get to go have that actually doesn't really matter, and we don't care about that thing anyways. This is a demotion. So we're seeing the kind of the outworking of the Signalgate story now. It's very clear that the position of the administration, I think they've handled this perfectly. The position of the administration was that Mike Waltz fucked up, and this is, who knows what other stuff is going on in behind the scenes, but he's being demoted. And the new national security advisor is Marco Rubio. He is now Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, acting administrator of USAID, and the acting archivist. He's got all four of these roles. The jokes on this have been great. You know, of course, the Hispanic guy is the one who gets multiple roles. Someone posted the was it the Green Mile with Michael Clark Duncan? He's like, I'm tired, boss. JD Vance might have had the best one though. He tweeted this. He says, I think he could take on a bit more if only there was a job opening for a devout Catholic. And him being having this dual role now, per Politico, is not a short-term thing. 3 White House officials tell me he will serve a minimum of 6 months, and others should stop campaigning for the role. So reading from Politico, White House wants Rubio in powerful dual role long-term. It's a remarkable elevation for a former 2016 primary rival who exchanged personal attacks with Trump as they battled over the Republican Party's future. Marco Rubio is expected to serve as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor for a minimum of 6 months, and a number of top advisors to President Donald Trump are interested in making the arrangement permanent, according to 3 senior White House officials. His dual role is seen as far more than a short-term solution. It was not set up to be a stopgap measure, one of the officials said. Rubio did not seek the role, but was asked by Trump and Chief of Staff Susie Wiles to step in and take, quote, more fulsome control of the administration's overall foreign policy apparatus, according to the officials who were granted anonymity to discuss the personnel dynamics. It's a remarkable elevation for a former 2016 primary rival. He's just a quintessential team player that is willing to accept whatever task is necessary to deliver for the president, including the hard or risky ones, said the official. His mandate is to bring stability and, quote, reorient the National Security Council to make sure that what comes out of it, quote, fully reflects the president's vision, said another official. The person added that Rubio is, quote, the perfect person for this role because, quote, he understands process and foreign policy and works well with the team, which is a big deal. The official said Rubio's loyalty is one of his biggest assets. Rubio has set aside many of his own prior stances, including his previously hawkish support for Ukraine, since signing on as Trump's top diplomat. He has also become a vociferous advocate for Trump's controversial deportation policies, despite being born to parents who came to the United States from Cuba. The shifts have drawn criticism from some traditional Republicans, yada, yada, yada. You need a team player who's very honest with the president and the senior team, not someone trying to build an empire or wield a knife or drive their own agenda. He is singularly focused on delivering the president's agenda, said the first official. There was some initial concern over the scale and scope of serving as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. Henry Kissinger, who held both jobs in the Nixon and Ford administrations, was the only other person to do so. Where did you guys recently hear conversation drawing parallels between Marco Rubio and Henry Kissinger? Could it have been the ASTROLABE? We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the beginning of the ASTROLABE. It was beginning of June last year. It's been almost a year. It's crazy. Kissinger was known to use the dual position to exert his own influence over the process and become one of the most powerful presidential aides in history. As senior Trump staffers mulled the idea in recent days, they came to see the synergy between the two roles as an advantage. Quote, one is the convener, gatherer of facts, and articulator of policy, and the other is the diplomatic lead. I realized they may be more complementary than I thought, said the second official. As for anyone else campaigning for the job, quote, everyone should stop. We have a sensational person willing to do it, that person said. Now, I'm going to... I just realized I forgot to have this tweet. I got all these other tabs and forgot this one important one. This is a cautionary note. And I don't know if this is a let me just find this tweet here real quick. And oh man, there was 1 million people, almost 1 million people watching the White House Lo-Fi MAGA stream earlier. Sorry guys, I should have pulled this up before I got started. There was something that Josh Steinman said just recently that he's vague posting, which I understand. And so I don't know exactly what this is alluding to, but I'm going to keep it in the back of my mind over the next several weeks as I see each of these news stories that comes down the timeline. Man, he tweets a lot. If I can't find it, then I will just try to paraphrase it, but I would, given the content of it, I would like to be able to just read it directly. Okay, I'm not finding it here, and I can't remember exact words that he used in it, so I can't just search for it directly. He said something about how there's some stuff that's coming down the line that is, here it is. Over the next few weeks, you're going to see a lot of BS that you want to believe is true, but isn't. It's designed to get powerful people interested, repeating talking points so they can later be denigrated. Please stay frosty out there. This was posted at 1:46 a.m. Central Time, April 30th, so 2 days ago. I don't know what this is a reference to. I don't have the faintest hint, the faintest clue. That's all he posted. But he's well connected. He's very well connected. If you remember, he's the guy who, in January, he posted a long thread that went super viral talking about how he said the incoming administration, from what he's hearing, is going to retain a lot of the people in the National Security Council that Biden put there. And he's like, these people are snakes. They're not going to enforce your will. Like, you need to get them out. And within a couple of days, the administration reacted and like began loyalty testing all the people in the National Security Council and relieved a bunch of them and replaced them. He was a member of the National Security Council in the first administration. So he's connected. I have no idea what he's referring to, but when he says stuff, I take it seriously. I don't know if this is a reference to the Rubio thing. I don't remember him saying anything about Rubio in the past, so I don't know if he's been a fan or not a fan. So there could be no connection here whatsoever. But even if it's not referencing this, just whatever it is referencing, keep your head on a swiggle. We gotta have a Scott Jennings appearance. It wouldn't be a Labe without a Scott Jennings video. And here's Scott Jennings talking about Mr. Marco Grande himself.
Well, I actually think this shows a huge amount of confidence in Rubio. If you talk to people in the White House, you talk to people who supported Donald Trump, some who were a little skeptical of Rubio because they didn't consider him to necessarily be from the president's wing of this foreign policy thinking. They believe Rubio has done a terrific job. He has been a consistent spokesperson for the president's priorities. He did a great job on the El Salvador issue, did a great job on the student visa issue. He is one of the smoothest communicators that the administration has. It's obvious they have a lot of confidence in him, not just because they gave him Secretary of State, but they put him in at USAID. They've had him do a massive reorg in the State Department.
He's a busy guy.
Now they're giving him this gig. They got confidence in this guy.
That's part of the point.
He's been a star. I've been with the president recently. I've watched him in these meetings. I've seen the way things are working. There is no chaos. But I can tell you this, unlike in the administration you work for, there's no doubt who's running the country, and it's Donald Trump.
There's agencies where they have fired career professionals all throughout the national security apparatus.
Bureaucrats.
You know what I mean? We're in a heightened threat environment, Scott.
Exactly.
We are in a very, and we cannot.
We're in a heightened threat environment, Scott. It's a heightened threat environment. Somebody said this phrase to me once, and it was meaningful to me, so I'm going to say it again. We're in a heightened threat environment. Look at his face. Giga Scott.
Not have this type of chaos in our national security.
Chaos.
Well, there's a heightened threat environment.
He's replaced the language that the Republican Party used to speak on this issue. He talks more about peace than he does about war. I mean, ask the Houthis if he's willing to go to war. He will, but he is a man who would prefer to talk about peace first. Baki is exactly right.
All right. Yeah, bro's getting nagged to death. Won't you think of the bureaucrats? The poor bureaucrats. Jennings posted a picture of himself with Trump just recently, and said there's like some special announcement coming, and Trump was holding a paper up, but it was blurred out. Don't know what it was. I don't know if that was a reference to the Rubio thing or if this is something with Scott Jennings himself, but Mr. Scott Jennings, we will be watching your career with great interest. Okay. I have the funniest way to set up this conversation about the great battle of Shiloh. White women are fed up. If you guys want an idea of which direction things are going, this is Kanye West previewing unreleased music with top 5 on Sneako's stream. This is not a... That's such a cursed sentence. I promise you are not ready for this. No matter what you think, your brain is not ready.
With all of the money and fame, I still can't get my kids back. With all of the money and fame, I still don't get to see my children. Niggas see my Twitter, but they don't see how I be feeling. So I became a Nazi, yeah, bitch, I'm the nigga, how Hitler, nigga, how Hitler. They don't understand the things I say on Twitter. Nigga, how Hitler. They don't understand the things I say on Twitter. All my niggas Nazis, nigga, how Hitler. Nigga, how Hitler. Nigga, how Hitler. All my niggas Nazis, nigga, how Hitler.
We live in the strangest times, man. It is a banger. It is a banger. This is what the so you've got Asmongold. You've got his radicalization that we've been tracking here. You've got the Sneako world. The way that the political scene is going to look in, I don't know, 5 to 10 years is going to be such a far cry from the world of social justice warriors and wokeness and cancellation. And it is, we're going to look back on those days as it'll be nice that they're gone, but what replaces them is not necessarily going to, be stable and peaceful and quiet and happy. The halcyon days are, I think they're a little ways off. Things are beginning to fracture. Things are breaking apart. And all of the regimes, what's the word? Shibboleths, all of the core doctrines of the regime are being trampled in the streets. So I hesitated. I wasn't going to talk about the story, and then it just kind of hit the tipping point. And I was like, okay, I gotta talk about the story. But it's, well, okay, let's just talk about it. So for those of you who don't know, if you've been living under a rock and you don't know the, if I say Battle of Shiloh, that doesn't mean anything to you. Talking about white women being fed up. If that hasn't clicked for you, well, here's the background of this. So a young woman named Shiloh Hendricks in Rochester, Minnesota, was on a park, and a 5-year-old black kid was digging around in her kid's bag and took some of her kid's stuff. And she went and retrieved them and got her son and had a choice word for the young child. And this guy sitting here recording, we'll talk about the guy who's recording this here in just a moment. This story has so many layers to it, but that's where the recording picks up here.
You call him a nigger, the child?
The fuck you talking
Did you
about?
call the child the nigger word?
Your fucking business.
It is my own business. You call him a nigger? Okay, why don't you have the balls to say it right now again?
Fuck you, nigger.
Okay.
Nigger.
All right, that's what you say.
You don't go digging through people's shit, you dumb fuck.
Nobody dig into your shit.
A little fucking kid just did, you dumbass.
That little kid, you call him a nigger?
Yeah.
The little child?
What if he acts like one, he's gonna...
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He
He took my son's stuff. So that gives you the right to call a child, 5-year-old, a nigger, the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a shit.
Huh.
Fuck off.
Okay, we'll see about that, what the internet has to say about you.
Personally, an underrated part of this video here is this part right here.
It is my own business. You call him a nigger? Okay, why don't you have the balls to say it?
The women are tired. Fatigue, I believe, is what they call it. So since this happened, she has set up a GoFundMe, actually a Give, Send, Go, and says, help me protect my family. Whoops. My name is Shiloh, and I've been put into a very dire situation. I recently had a kid steal from my 18-month-old son's diaper bag at a park. I called the kid out for what he was. Another man who we recently found out has had a history with law enforcement proceeded to record me and follow me to my car. He then posted these videos online, which has caused my family and myself great turmoil. My social security number has been leaked. My address and phone number have been given out freely. My family members are being attacked. My eldest child may not be going back to school. Even where I exercise has been exposed. I'm asking for your help to assist in protecting my family. I fear that we must relocate. I have 2 small children who do not deserve this. We've been threatened to the extreme by people online. Anything will help. We cannot and will not live in fear. Thank you. And as of right now, I think is this up to date? She started off, I think the initial goal was $50,000 or maybe $20,000 or something like that. It is currently at $468,000. And she has set the goal up to $1 million. There's so many layers to this. So that one story, the other story that I didn't talk about, I thought about it a number of times and decided not to get into it because what am I going to add to the conversation? So you had the young man in Dallas, the Dallas area, a young white boy who confronted a dear scholar who was behaving suspiciously at a track, like a school track meet, and black kid pulled out a knife, stabbed him in the heart, killed him there on the spot, and then proceeded to create a Give, Send, Go and got $500,000, give or take, donated to him. And if you want something to be angry about, if you decide you want to indulge your passions, you want something to be angry about, go read the donation comments on that. The Give, Send, Go founder, CEO, whatever, was under a lot of pressure to take the campaign down because what they were spending, after this kid got so Austin Metcalf was the kid who was stabbed, who was killed, and Carmelo Anthony, of course the kid's name is Carmelo Anthony, is the black kid who killed him, and he was let out on a really low bond, and then his family his family bought an Escalade, or they already had an Escalade. They rented a $900,000 house, and they're just doing what their people would do if they got $500,000 gifted to them for stabbing a kid in the chest. And the reason that they got $500,000 out of it was because, I'll just put it bluntly, black people were exulting in the fact that a white kid got stabbed. And the messages attached to it were very much toward that end. Now, the midwits want to talk about psyops and this thing, they're intentionally creating this thing to divide you. And sure, there's people who might be contributing to that, but this stuff isn't fake. This stuff isn't being astroturfed. There are genuinely $500,000 of donations worth of people out there who are happy to see that a black kid stabbed and killed a white kid, and they want to reward him for that. And as we've seen with the judicial system lately, there's not a there's very good chance that he's not going to get the sort of law and order imposed upon him that should be. So this is a reaction. This is a reaction. Do I think that if you a young white mother at the playground with your son, do I think that you should go hard R-ing at a 5-year-old kid or at any young kid? No. Don't, like, for the sake of your own preservation, don't do it. It's not wise. It's rude too. It is. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. Doesn't mean that you always shouldn't do it. It definitely isn't the sort of behavior that I think should be. I don't think it's indicative. It's behavior that is correspondent to living in a civilization. But we don't live in a civilization. And the liberal worldview would have you believe that saying the word is a pretext for violence. But that's not true. It's actually a replacement for violence. And if you're not going to allow the word to be said, then there's going to be violence. The state of things was not going to be sustainable for forever. It was going to break. The racial tensions have been building. I started off with the clips of Democrats trying to talk to white men. They have no idea what a white man even thinks or believes. They have no like mental model for the frame of a white man. There's been open white hostility encouraged, supported, sanctioned by actual office holders of government. Remember the campaign that Kamala Harris was donating to bail out black people who ransacked their city, stole stuff, beat people up, burned things down, killed people. And she was donating to bail them out. She was encouraging people to donate to bail them out. Do I think that this is a good situation? This woman's going to get $500,000 for dropping a hard R at a kid on the playground? If you set it up that way, no. That's not good. This isn't wholesome. This isn't sustainable. But it is. It's inevitable. It was going to happen. This is white people deciding to take the word back. And not just take the word back, but take back the entire racial grievance system. It's going to be dismantled. I talked with Jason last night on Network Armageddon, Electric Boogaloo. We talked about America as a multiracial ethnicity and necessarily multiracial ethnicity. And I think it always has been, and it's going to be. And if you think that there's going to be some sort of a sustainable future American ethnicity that is strictly white, it's just completely at odds with reality. But white people are going to be, always have been, always will be, the dominant culture within the country. It's going to be a predominantly white country. And if you try to make white people feel like second-class citizens in their country, it's going to wind up with this sort of thing. And be glad that for now it's this sort of thing and it's not more. I tweeted this last night that I'm trying to decide that if having a proxy race war through Give, Send, Goes is better than or just simply a pretext for an actual race war. Frankly, I don't know the answer to that. I hope that it's not a pretext for an actual race war. I mean, you could say we're already in a race war, but I'm talking like an actual hot race war. I don't think something like that should happen. I don't want something like that to happen. I want this to be resolved without that. But for way too long, white people are the only people who have been told that they are not allowed to identify with their own race. They're not allowed to have a consciousness of their own race, of the people who share a race with them, which means the people who share a heritage with them, who share traditions, who share cultural inclinations, who share values. White people are the only people who have been threatened and abused and encouraged not to think of themselves as a racial people, which is itself just completely at odds with reality. It's inevitably going to end up in violence of one sort or another. If we can keep the violence restricted to warring crowdfunding campaigns online, that'd be great. I don't know if it's going to be possible. There's someone reached out to me on Twitter, and he grew up in Rochester, and he said he offered to fill me in on the facts on the ground. He said she's probably not white trash, first off. Rochester is the home of the Mayo Clinic. Yeah, sure, it's 100,000 people in the middle of nowhere, but it is one of the highest per capita IQ places in the country. It's a weird town that's been flooded by Somali pests for 30 years. They're far less aggressive, but far more obnoxious than American blacks. Even if you're white trash in Rochester, it's by choice. One of the high schools has a radio telescope. There's probably more geneticists and neuroscientists, etc., per square mile than any city in the country. So Somali fatigue is real. You have 3 high schools that have private school tier curriculums, with whites and a smattering of Asians being invaded by the most retarded Negroids on the planet. They're also Muslim, so that's an added anti-lubricant. Minnesota has universal, if you're poor, healthcare, and lots of other Scandinavian-style benefits in general. So basically, we got stuck with the retards of the Negroes. Like, the actual African Americans in town will mock each other by calling each other Somali. He said, imagine a bunch of private school doctors' chess club kids being forced to interact with bone-through-nose kid Muslims who take a cup into the bathroom stall so they can wash their hands with piss. And we were told we were equal. And then he said one last thing that's important because that the average American doesn't understand Somalis. The average IQ in Somalia is 67 to 69. They're retarded by Africa standards. They're also very skinny. They're neither the hardy Bantu or Zulu stock of Southern Africa or sturdy West Africans who only got buffer in the case of Black Americans who got white admixture. They're real thin, giant bulb retards. They're ugly and stupid for blacks. They're craven. The Arab Muslims cut off their bravest men's balls for 700 years, and it shows. And he said, last thing I'll say, as I said, Shiloh isn't white trash. Fuck that term anyways, I agree. Because her accent is wrong for white around here, and so is her clothing. She's more likely a middle-class girl who made some questionable choices, but all I see looking at her pictures are 2 young white boys with infinite potential. So, appreciate, let's see, he said I could say his name. This is Cast Iron Locust on Twitter. Appreciate the insights, bud. So since this has kicked off, a couple more specific details of the story here. The Rochester police are actively looking to her, and the local NAACP are calling for charges.
TPTC is reaching out to law enforcement in the wake of a video going viral on social media that was reportedly recorded in Rochester, and many of our viewers have contacted us about it. There is a video circulating on multiple social media platforms that was reportedly recorded at a park in Rochester. The video shows a woman holding a small child making racist slurs in reference to another child at the playground who she claims had taken something that belongs to her child. The person recording the video alludes to the child being targeted as having special needs. KTTC does not own the rights to this video, nor are we choosing to identify anyone until more information comes to light. We can now confirm Rochester police have received multiple calls about the video and are actively looking into the matter. The Rochester branch of the NAACP released a statement today about the video, saying it is outraged and deeply disturbed by the incident, saying in part, quote, "We call on the City of Rochester Police Department, the City of Rochester's City Attorney's Office, and Olmsted County Attorney's Office to launch a full investigation and to file all appropriate charges," end quote.
Dissident Soap says, make a note of all the right-wing influencers who told you this was dumb and a waste of time and resources. No, this is a showdown over one of the regime's primary shibboleths. Smash their idols. Now, the guy who filmed it. Let's add another layer to this. The guy who filmed it Sharmak, this guy here. Sharmake, Bele Omar, this guy here. 2 Rochester men will appear in court May 5 on joint charges of 3rd and 5th degree criminal sexual conduct after being accused of raping a 16-year-old after offering her a place to stay. He was 30 at the time of this story, may receive a joint trial for their identical charges of 3rd degree criminal sexual conduct, penetration of person under 18 years old, use of coercion, and 5th degree criminal sexual conduct, dating back to January 30, 2022. You just can't write. You could not script these stories. A literal Somali pedophile is at a park. A 30-something-year-old Somali pedophile who committed the crimes 3 years ago is hanging out at the park to go film her to post it on the internet and kick this whole thing off in the first place. I got to share this. Cash Nicholson, Shiloh Hendricks, when a Somali pederast pulls out his phone to record.
No, we're not doing that. You're getting called a slur.
All hail Sam Hyde. So Quetzal Phoenix, Carlos that notices things, says, you know how murder is bad, but sometimes you have to kill in self-defense or go to war? That's how I see racism. That really got the noggin jogging. Yeah, I grew up in Washington State. I grew up around a lot of white people, but also around lots of non-whites. I have spent a lot of time in foreign countries, around a lot of in Central America, quite a bit, and just the cultures that I was involved in with the church and everything growing up were all very, very diverse. And I've had great friends who are blacks. We've got some great neighbors on our street right now. There's a family across the street from us that both of the parents are professionals. They're well-paid professionals. They've got 2 kids, this really sweet young girl and a boy who's probably 13, 14, something like that, who does 4-H. He has a pig that he has been taking care of as part of the 4-H thing that he's in. And Eastwood plays with a little girl. She comes across, they hang out and play all the time. We've got a Hispanic kid down the street. We got another Hispanic kid across the street. These people are all fantastic neighbors, wonderful people, no problems with them whatsoever. I also got stuck in the Atlanta airport for 9 hours last week and have never wanted more to just be around people who look like me, who talk like me, who think like me, who share the same social etiquette as me. Like not creating a wall of people who saunter aimlessly down the walkway in the middle of an airport while people are hustling, trying to get from flight to flight, smelling bad, just stinking up the whole place as they just saunter through, completely oblivious of anyone around them. If you try to force people that are that different to occupy the same spaces constantly and be treated as if they are the same people, as if there's nothing that's different about them, that's a recipe for violence, for crime, for all manner of temptation for sinful behavior. It's just evil. You cannot force people to share spaces like this. There's a reason why desegregation had to be done at gunpoint, and it wasn't because the great innate evil of the white man. It's because the segregation was a natural thing. People naturally want to be around people who look like them. This stems straight out from the family. I want to live with my family. I don't want to live with non-family. Living with non-family is less ideal than living with family. Now take that out to the neighborhood. This is a difficult issue because, as I said, there is going to be a multiracial America for the long foreseeable future of America. It is going to be multiracial. African Americans are Americans. They're not Africans. It would be an act of great cruelty to send them to Africa. They hate each other. Many of them, their families have been here for a couple hundred, few hundred years. This is their home. This is all that they've ever known. This is where they were born. This is where their parents were born, where their parents' parents were born. Once you get beyond several generations, this is their home. They're not going anywhere. And you can't. Stormy Waters made this point on the Inquisition podcast so well. It was so profound. I hadn't even thought about it this way. He said, if you think about the constitution of Africa, the spiritual constitution of the bulk of Africa, where the most debauched forms of demon worship and cannibalism and unrestrained violence, total exploitation of each other, zero trust. And it's been like that for hundreds of years in most places. If you were to take your average American black, who, again, if we're talking averages here, the average is probably a mentally, 12. Obviously, there's exceptions. There's great exceptions on both ends of the spectrum. We're talking statistical averages. If you're going to take a 12-year-old and go make them live among a bunch of cannibalist tribes, a bunch of cannibal tribes, you can't call yourself a Christian. There is nothing that's noble or Christian about that. No, the Black American population isn't going anywhere. They are Americans. The American identity, as a matter of historical necessity, includes Black people. It includes Hispanic people. A huge number of them. This is why this is part of what led me along the train of thought of America is not an Anglo nation, strictly speaking. They're not going anywhere. You're not going to get rid of them. Because of because of the political capital that it would require. And if you think like if you're hell bent on we got to get rid of all of them, I'm gonna make this happen. We're just gonna get rid of all of them. All right, well, you need to get to work amassing the greatest amount of political capital that has ever been brought to bear. To not just make it happen, to lay all the groundwork, to create all of the infrastructure necessary to make it happen, but then to actually sustain it. I'm not talking ethical or moral here. I'm talking practical. But ethically, morally, they don't belong in Africa. They don't belong in Africa any more than I belong in Norway or Germany. I don't belong there. That's not my home. America's my home. This is where my family is from. This is where I've spent my entire life. This is where my spirit is rooted. Black Americans are Americans as well. And our responsibility is to figure out how to make that work. The only way that it's going to work is for there to be the generally accepted recognition that America is a predominantly white Christian country. And that white people and Christians are not going to be subjected to persecution and abuse and second-class citizenship in the country. And observing statistical patterns and trends, and modifying your behavior to protect your family, your own person, your own property accordingly is not evil or shameful. In fact, it's noble. But don't let that nobility get you carried away. This is a time of great danger. This is one of the vectors for the vengeful son, for Jason's prediction. One of the big vectors. This is a situation that needs to be resolved. And it's going to take uncomfortable, rude, distasteful things to make it happen. But that can't be a justification for corrupting your own soul in the process. Keep your head on a swiggle. Andrew Torba says female social behavior is deeply influenced by group consensus and the fear of ostracism. When the prevailing sentiment shifts, when racial realism is no longer taboo and anti-white rhetoric becomes the mark of shame, the change will be swift and decisive. We will blink and it will happen overnight. That's what's happening right now. This is the rise of the fix-it woman. There's plenty of women who are not going to get it, and frankly, I don't hold it against them. The women who don't get it are not they're not objects of scorn. First of all, as a man, if you ever are scorning a woman, you like something's gone haywire in your head. You shouldn't occupy a posture with respect to a woman where scorn is the sentiment that you would direct at them. Women are products of consensus. Women are the ones who like the nice things. They want things to be nice. They will reflect the prevailing culture back at you. So, of course, as the prevailing culture begins to change, the women are probably going to be the last one. A chunk of the women are going to be the last ones to change. A chunk of them are going to be the first, and the rest of them are going to be the last. Arguing with women online is silly. Now, that being said, MAGA Hulk here does have a good response to Riley Gaines, who's saying, we don't need a white Carmelo Anthony. He says, Con Inc. always elevates intellectual lightweights like Riley, who are incapable of grasping cultural shifts. For over a decade, the left has been doxing and demonizing average Joes for simply reacting to the third world shitholes that their communities have become. And then we watch Carmelo Anthony have over $500,000 raised for him in celebration of him stabbing a white teenager in the chest simply for asking him to move. Shiloh Hendricks also doesn't have the luxury of living in a gated community like Riley. Instead, she has to live among the hundreds of thousands of Somalians imported into Minnesota and deal with constantly being accosted and harassed. By raising over hundreds of thousands for Shiloh, perhaps the left will learn to stop doxing random Americans for wrong speech and wrongthink. Regardless, we're not listening to these worthless gatekeepers anymore. It was going to happen. It's going to happen. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture in all of this. This sort of thing is useful to an end. It's not useful in and of itself. But it is good to the extent that it is moving toward this end. Because white people cannot be continually subjected to this sort of treatment without bad things happening. Another great long post here from Chad Crowley, a powerful mutual I discovered. He said, for years the is held. A white person makes a comment, sometimes crude, sometimes merely unfashionable. A video is clipped, stripped of context, and cast into the digital coliseum. The crowd demands penance. Doxing follows. Then come the sponsors, the employers, the journalists. The result is always the same. Apology, groveling, ruin. This is not justice. It never was. It's a moral spectacle, a purification ritual for the postmodern West, where the cleansing agent is white submission. The apology is not meant to be accepted, but to affirm the guilt of the group. The goal is not reconciliation, but re-education, humiliation, and silence. But this time, with the case of Shiloh Hendricks, the script cracked. Her personal details were posted online. She received death threats. Her children were targeted. And yet she did not capitulate. She didn't appear on camera with a quivering voice and downcast eyes. She launched a fundraiser. And white people responded. Not the media, not the institutions, not the credentialed class, but ordinary white people. Tens of thousands poured in to support her. The platform Give, Send, Go, not GoFundMe, which routinely bans dissidents, reported over $250,000 raised in days. These were not donations. These are the stirrings of something new. Each dollar said, "We see what you were doing, and we're done pretending." This is more than a defense of one woman. It's a rejection of the moral framework that made her a target. This is bang on. If you don't get I know I've seen some people in my circles who are like, who sort of share the Riley Gaines perspective. They're like, "Oh, we don't need a Carmelo Anthony thing. We don't, This is what's happening. This is a performative rejection of the moral framework. And the more people that do it, the more that moral framework gets diminished and rejected, the more it loses. The Hendricks affair is not the first of its kind, but it's one of the first to end differently. No apology, no resignation, no collapse. Instead, resistance. And that, more than anything else, signals a shift. The ritual is breaking, and with it, the spell of white guilt. White guilt was never a natural sentiment. No people naturally hate themselves or push for their own demographic extinction. It did not emerge organically from conscience or history. It was manufactured, ritualized, and weaponized. It was imposed from above by alien elites who seized control of the institutions of education, media, and culture, and rewrote morality to make one group, the white population, the permanent villain in its own homeland. From the youngest age, white children are taught to associate their identity with conquest, slavery, cruelty, and destruction. They're told to dissociate from their own heritage, to feel shame for the achievements of their ancestors, to distrust their instincts, and to question the legitimacy of their very existence. They're instructed to love all others, but never themselves. This is not ethics, it's psychological warfare. And like all systems built on repression, it only works if it remains unquestioned. The moment it is challenged, seriously, openly, defiantly, it begins to fall apart. The power of white guilt lies in silence, not argument. Once someone says aloud, "I don't feel guilty," the illusion weakens for everyone else. This is what the Hendricks fundraiser represents. Not a defense of one person, but a refusal to obey the narrative. It's one thing to quietly disagree with the orthodoxy. It's another to act on that disagreement. The act of giving money in defiance of the media's command is a political gesture far more radical than voting. It's an act of moral rejection, and tens of thousands just performed it. This would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Even 5 years ago, the weight of institutional guilt still compelled submission. But something has changed. The spell is weakening. The repetition no longer works. The words no longer bind. The system still speaks in the language of shame, but fewer and fewer are listening. The idea that whites must apologize for existing is no longer sacred. It's simply absurd. And once absurdity is exposed, mockery follows, then rejection, then reversal. We're witnessing the early stages of that reversal. When guilt dies, politics begins. The moral paralysis ends, the silence breaks, and what replaces it is not chaos, but clarity. Once whites stop apologizing for who they are, they begin to ask the forbidden questions. Who benefits from our shame? Who profits from our dispossession? Why are we the only people on earth forbidden to speak in our own name? White identity politics is the answer to those questions. It's not supremacy, it's not hatred, it's not a call to dominate others. It's simply the expression of collective interest. Every other group has it, every other group has allowed it. Only whites are told that to speak as a group is to commit a crime. But the spell is fading, and with it the power of that prohibition. Once the guilt disappears, it becomes obvious. We are a people. We have a shared past, a shared destiny, a right to exist, and a right to continue existing. We're not just individuals with private lives, we're part of a greater whole. And like all peoples, we have interests that must be protected. This is why white identity politics is inevitable. In any multiracial society, politics becomes tribal. Interests diverge. Groups form. Coalitions compete. The only people told to sit out this contest are whites. The only people who believe they can remain neutral are those still under the spell. But neutrality is a luxury of those not under attack. That time is over. Every institution in the West now operates openly against the long-term interests of whites. From immigration to education to media representation to the redefinition of national identity, every policy moves in one direction toward our reduction, our silencing, and our replacement. To oppose this is not extremism, it's survival. It's not radical to defend what every group defends by instinct. It is only considered radical because the system has criminalized our normality. But that's changing. Each time someone like Hendricks refuses to collapse, each time the crowd responds with support instead of shame, the political ground shifts. The taboo weakens and the future opens. What comes next is not a return to the past, but a forging of something new, an explicit, unapologetic, and moral politics of white identity. What happened with Shiloh Hendricks is not an isolated moment. It's part of a larger pattern, one that grows stronger with each passing year. In case after case, when whites are smeared, vilified, or threatened, the response is no longer retreat. It's support. It's solidarity. It's an instinctive, growing resolve to take our own side. We saw it with the Covington boys when a group of Catholic school students were slandered across every major news outlet for a crime they didn't commit. The footage was selectively edited, the truth buried, the children's faces splashed across the internet as villains of the week. And yet the response was not surrender. It was a legal counterstrike and eventual vindication. We saw it with Kyle Rittenhouse, who was hunted across every media platform as a domestic terrorist despite clear video evidence of self-defense. He was doxxed, threatened, and prosecuted. But millions supported him. Donations poured in. The truth won in court. And more importantly, it won in the minds of countless Americans who saw what the system really is. We saw it again when corporate giants like Bud Light and Target made open mockery of the cultural and sexual values of the American heartland. The response was not just outrage, it was organized economic retaliation. Boycotts worked. Stocks dropped. Executives panicked. In every case, something important happened. Whites, once atomized and demoralized, began to show signs of collective nerve. They acted in defense of their own, even if they could not always articulate why. They stopped backing down, they stopped assuming they were guilty, and they started pushing back. This is the slow emergence of white political consciousness. Not yet unified, not yet fully articulate, but undeniably present. It no longer takes manifestos or movements to activate it. A single slandered face, a single act of defiance is enough. And each time it happens, the reflex strengthens. These reactions are not driven by ideology, they're driven by instinct, tribal, ancestral, moral. They're not about hate, they're about loyalty. They're about fairness. They're about survival. What we're witnessing is not a backlash, it's an awakening. White identity politics is not just strategic. It's not merely a reaction to demographic decline or institutional hostility. It's rooted in something deeper, something moral. At its heart is the principle that every people has a right to exist, the right to continuity, the right to its own space in the world. To say that whites have collective interests is not to deny the same of others. It's to affirm the most basic moral symmetry. What is legitimate for everyone else is legitimate for us. No more, no less. Love of one's own is not a sin. It's the foundation of every functioning society. It begins in the family. No decent father loves the neighbor's child more than his own. No sane mother sacrifices her child's future for the approval of strangers. What is natural at the familial level is no less natural at the national or civilizational level. The same moral instinct that binds a parent to a child also binds a people to its heritage. To defend your nation, your culture, your memory is not selfish, it's sacred. And yet, this basic moral code has been inverted. We are told to love our own is exclusionary, that to preserve our culture is oppressive, that to secure our future is an act of violence. But only white people are told this. No one lectures the Chinese about ethno-national continuity. No one tells Africans that tribal loyalty is backward. No one scolds Jews for preserving their identity. The taboo is selective. The double standard is absolute. This is why the system is unsustainable. It demands that whites abandon instincts that every other group is allowed to honor. It demands that we surrender the very morality we're told to uphold. But real morality does not require self-abolition. Real morality is rooted in order, loyalty, and the defense of one's own. The deeper we dig, the more clearly we see white identity politics is not a threat to moral order. It's a return to it. White guilt is dying. The institutions still speak its language, but the people no longer believe. The slogans ring hollow. The shame is worn thin. More and more, the system demands apology and receives only silence, or resistance, or laughter. What rises in its place is not bitterness. It is clarity. White identity is legitimate. White interests are real. White survival is non-negotiable. These are not radical claims, they're foundational truths, long suppressed, now returning to the surface. No society can endure without some form of identity. No people can endure without some form of pride. This is not about nostalgia. It's not about restoring the world of yesterday. That world is gone. What remains is the task of building something new, something rooted in memory but aimed at the future. A politics not of apology but of affirmation. not of resentment, but of renewal. The rise of white identity politics is not a threat to others, it's a restoration of balance. It is the correction of a moral distortion that demanded one people dissolve itself for the comfort of all the others. That era is ending. And the signs are everywhere. In every boycott, in every defiant fundraiser, in every quiet conversation that dares to name what cannot be named. There is a growing majority, not yet organized, not yet fully conscious, but already forming. The next political realignment will not be between left and right. It will be between those who kneel and those who stand, and we're learning to stand. We do not ask permission. We do not beg for place. We are not going anywhere. The future belongs to those who know who they are. He also has an essay here. I'm not going to read it now, but he says, you cannot care for nature while condemning the only people who ever made it sacred. You cannot fight for animals while erasing the civilization that protected them first. And then he has another thread on the morality of white identity. If you go to the King Pilled Substack, just look for the tweet from Chad Crowley, and you can go share it. You can go read those other threads if you'd like. I'll post this episode on the King Pilled Substack as soon as this is over. I got another one. This from Dan Talks 1 on Twitter. This is the most ruthless post I have and probably ever will do. This is the intellectual skeleton key to turning the West around. There are a few posts that will change your perception of the world. This is one of them. Now, that's a sales pitch. There is no such thing as migrant crime. There is no such thing as migrant rapes, thefts, scams, or murders. Crime is when someone within your tribe or in-group violates the rules that your own tribe has created. These are not universals, rather idealized preferences that you have as a Westerner in a Western country. These are not real. They are preferences to how you want your society to function. Humans are tribal. We are not individuals. We operate and require groups to function and succeed. That's why we have tribal instincts and tribal loyalties. Modern businesses hijack this with things like sports teams, but tribal loyalty and nationalism, which is its end derivative, is the most powerful force in the world because it quite literally is our survival mechanism. Without a tribe, we cannot survive. So tribal instincts after personal survival are our most powerful drivers. Question is, what is a tribe? Look at your hand. That's your tribe. We are concentrically loyal. Family, race, religion, region, in that order and ideally homogenized. Liberalism is a belief and an attempt to universalize the Western tribe to everyone. And if everyone is subject to the standard, they are subject to both access and protection within that standard. White Westerners are not exempt from this. This underlying fact is the one thing everyone tries to gloss over. But it is the underlying truth about how the world really is. The world is anarchic, what that means is there is no higher authority in the system. We form governments as a result of our tribal loyalties to represent and organize ourselves as a tribe. That's what a nation is. It's the formalized structure of a tribe of people. Survival is our highest goal, and violence is a very effective way of getting resources for yourself and tribe. It's literally Cain versus Abel in the Bible. Because the world is anarchic, the underlying structure behind the resolution of tribal disputes is to be resolved by violence. Migrants, or people who are not from your tribe, are not subject to your standards or ideals. They have no responsibility to adhere to your standards, ideals, or values. Their goal is to maximize their own and their tribe's resources and power, with whatever means possible, including violence. When a Pakistani clan drugs and invites everyone over to have sex with a young white girl, this is not rape. It's not gang rape. Rape and gang rape are crimes done within your own tribe. This is intertribal violence. There are no rules in intertribal violence. This is the outcome of losing an ideological war and not understanding the primal structure of the world correctly. They are not your tribe. They are not subject to your standards. When they kill 20 people in an attack at an event, this is not murder. Murder is an intra-tribal crime. This is intertribal conflict where they have been given access by our own leaders to do this to you. They are predators. This is how the real world really is. These are the monsters behind the walls we worked so many generations to construct. When a foreigner scams you out of money, this is not stealing. It's intertribal resource acquisition. They're taking resources from rival tribes. It's only fraud and theft if you believe they're a part of your tribe. They do not think this. They do not want to be a part of your tribe. They seek to dominate, abuse, and exploit you for the benefit of theirs. Western culture has universalized our system of ethics and protection to everyone, when they have not done the same to you. And here's the line I repeat to everyone. Those who are not subject to ethics are not subject to the protection of ethics. Read that line as many times as you need, internalize it. Free yourself from the constraints of the propaganda levied upon you, and this is what will free you. They are rival tribes in an intertribal conflict. There are no rules except victory. Now, I have my quibbles with some of the stuff that he said, just because he's obviously not writing from a Christian perspective. So there's aspects of his ontology that are off, but what he's saying is true within the Christian frame as well. There's a reason why the Christian church has had, if you look at the history of the Orthodox Church, there's people ask, like, why is there Russian Orthodox and Greek Orthodox and Lithuanian Orthodox and Serbian Orthodox? And because the Orthodox Church recognizes the legitimacy, the authenticity, the realness of race. And the church endorses and upholds racial differences. I'm not saying this as a position, official position of the church, because I don't speak for the church. I'm just a normal layman. But generally speaking, interracial marriage is not per se good. There are the exceptions, as there are to every rule. But when you are interracially marrying, you're also interculturally marrying, which means you are merging two different value sets. When you do that, there's great potential for downside. Because we are most natural and safe and secure and prosperous when we are predominantly around our own. And we need to be free to be that way. Now, of course, there's just this whole story wouldn't be complete without just another layer. And this will lead us into the Doge conversation. Big Balls finally showed up on the screen. We're going to see Big Balls speak in just a moment. But before we get to that, this is from December. A massive Somali autism welfare scam just exploded in Minnesota. The number of autism providers went up 700%, from 41 to 328 in the past 5 years. Autism spending shot up from $6 million to $192 million. Somalis are 7 times more likely to get autism services, says FBI raids happening now. Look at these trajectories from 2018 to 2023. Number of autism providers and state funding for autism providers. And supposedly this kid that kicked this whole thing off, everyone's saying, oh, he's special needs, he's autistic. He might just be Somali. Daniel Greenfield says this follows the $250 million Feeding Our Future scam, and which Somalis claim to be feeding hundreds of thousands of kids who didn't exist. The autism scam looks like it might be almost as big, and it crosses over from the Feeding Our Future Somali scam. Authorities say at least a dozen defendants charged in the Feeding Our Future child nutrition fraud case also owned or received money from autism clinics. A 2009 Minnesota Department of Health study found the proportion of 3 to 4-year-old Somali kids receiving autism services was as much as 7 times higher than non-Somali children. More recent data show the disparity has only grown. Somalis set up their own centers to provide culturally appropriate programming. Newer providers that better represent diverse communities are more flexible, offering services beyond the traditional 9-to-5 workday, some of them advertising that they're open 7 days a week. This is the source from the Minnesota Reformer. I think Ilhan Omar needs to be deported. But not just deported. She's not going back to Somalia. She's going to El Salvador. Last thing I'll say on this is just guard your souls. There are powerful, dangerous spirits afoot. And they are seeking to cultivate and feed off of your bitterness and your resentment and your anger. As Jason said, it's going to feel good. Don't mistake that feeling, that good feeling. Don't get your wires crossed. Stay frosty. I've got a couple of the best quotes that Trump has ever delivered. Here's the first one.
Now, exactly 250 years after the first Patriots stood and fought at Lexington and Concord, we're in the midst of another kind of revolution, a revolution of winning and a revolution of common sense. Common sense. Everywhere you look, broken systems, corrupt institutions, and tired dogmas are being swept away by the tide of history. Ancient wisdom is being rediscovered, and the best and strongest traits of America are coming back for all to see, bigger, better, and greater than ever. Coming back, and they're coming back fast. The spirit of our age is one of boldness, vigor, ambition, and adventure, and it's exciting to be you and young. Oh, I'd pay you a lot of money to have your age. You have a great future. The people have rejected the voices of a failed establishment. You saw that in the election. We've turned the page on endless wars, crippling debt, open borders, ruinous inflation, and the lack of respect for our country and for its leaders. But we're turning that all around, and we're turning it around very fast. We will very quickly make America great again.
Look at those smiles behind him.
Now,
what a line. Everywhere you look, broken systems, corrupt institutions, and tired dogmas are being swept away by the tide of history. Ancient wisdom is being rediscovered, and the best and strongest traits of America are coming back for all to see. Bigger, better, and greater than ever. And then, this one. Oh, Mr. President, sir, I am your best guy, sir. Thank you. Thank you for taking notes. I know that you listen to the ASTROLABE. I know you've been taking notes. I see you echoing my talking points here. Listen to this.
For the business majors here today, I challenge you not merely to use your talents for financial speculation, but to apply your great skills that you've learned and had to forging the steel and pouring the concrete of new American factories, plants, shipyards, and even cities which are going up all over our country. Don't just build a strong portfolio, build a very, very strong America, and you're going to do that.
Don't just build a strong portfolio. Ben Braddock says the era of speculators must end and the era of builders must begin. We've got the president going to, was this Boston College, I think, something like that, giving the commencement speech, specifically tells the business majors, hey, pro tip, the financialization economy is dead. There's no future with the speculators and the financialists. The future's in building. So take your great skills and go build. University of Alabama, thank you.
To the engineers, brilliant you are, technicians, scientists, and math majors, we need your Alabama spirit and competition to keep our country at the forefront of every single domain. America should have the world's tallest buildings, design the fastest airplanes, build the greatest cars, do everything the absolute best, better than any other nation in the world, and you can do it. And we will soon land American astronauts on Mars. That will happen. That will happen.
We must have the tallest buildings.
In every field you have studied, there are problems to be solved and breakthroughs to be made. To the journalism majors, of which I've had a lot of problems with it. I must be honest. I'm not sure I like them. No, I do. But you're really leading a very thing, because we need a great and free press. We need a brilliant press. They're like a watchkeeper. They're very important, and you can go out and take it down a new track, help save the country. So important. Your task is so important, and it's to build a media that Americans can trust. And remember, the people of this country, they know the truth when they hear it. That's why the ratings, the approval numbers of the media are so low. We need those ratings to be 100%. We have to be able to trust our media. They say you have to have that. You need strong borders, and you need really free, fair, clean elections. You need those things.
Clean
but
elections.
The media is a big part of it. In the world of health and medicine, there is an exciting new movement to get poisons out of our food supply, keep toxins out of our government.
Thank you, Mr. President. Get those toxins
Clean out our environment and make America healthy again. And I think Bobby's going to do a great job, don't you? I think so. I think he's the guy we needed. And in government, it is the task of your generation to replace bureaucracy, graft, and waste with a new system that defends American freedom.
Thank you for defending American freedom, sir. And then there's this quote. I have no idea what the context is on this, but Aaron Rupar shared it, which means he's mad, which anything that makes Aaron Rupar mad makes me happy. This is, my president just has a way with words. He just knows how to put together a sentence. He has the best sentences. Never before have I seen a man who puts together such great sentences like my president, Donald Trump.
Imams, who I got to know in Michigan. I loved them. They were great, by the way. They said, we don't want to die. I said, you want to die? They said, we don't want to die. They said, what about the 38 virgins? They say, that's nonsense. We don't know anything about it. And we won the state of Michigan, Speaker, by a tremendous, and we had tremendous support. But we have.
What about the 38 virgins? They said, that's nonsense. We don't know anything about that. And so we won the state of Michigan. There's never been someone greater on the mic. Big news. On President Donald Trump's 79th birthday, June 14, he will host a large military parade for the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. It will include reenactors and equipment from many wars dating back to the Revolutionary War. We're getting war reenactments now to celebrate the birthday of the king. We're gonna have a great celebration. The whole country is gonna come together and celebrate the great military history. According to the AP, it's called for over 6,600 soldiers, at least 150 vehicles, and 50 helicopters. SecDef Pete Hegseth told Fox, in celebration of 250 years of the U.S. Army, we will throw the biggest and most beautiful military parade in our nation's history. And anybody you see who countersignals this must be ignored. They must be shunned. They must be humiliated. You don't know how to have a country if you think that this is a bad thing. Celebrating having the president use his birthday to celebrate the great U.S. Army. Rousing national pride and patriotism. A great militaristic display. There's nothing more American than that. All right, let's talk about, get some economic news, some updates on the trade war and such things. First of all, I've got for you guys a video here while I go drain the main vein real quick. Here's a video from Peter St. Onge. Very good follow. Highly recommend. Says GDP goes negative, and it's glorious. This was a blockbuster GDP number. Tariff front runs hit an epic boom in investment, the mother's milk of prosperity. America is reindustrializing at light speed, and foreigners are paying for it.
It's official, GDP is negative, and it is glorious. Last week, the Bureau of Economic Analysis reported that GDP for the first 3 months of 2025 turned negative for the first time since 2022. The kicker is all of it was caused by a 41% surge of imports front-running tariffs, which official GDP bizarrely counts as negative GDP. Without those, actual GDP soared by 4.5%, which is Asia level. It actually gets better because government spending dropped for the first time since 2022, control for that, and the economy grew by nearly 5% on the quarter, which, fun fact, is double China's current growth rate. So what's driving the boom? Simple private sector investment, the mother's milk of prosperity. BAA said investment skyrocketed in the quarter by 22%, much of it driven ironically by the very same tariffs that took the headline number down, as in foreign companies are falling over themselves to move production inside Donald Trump's tariff umbrella and produce in America. So going by those numbers, America is reindustrializing at light speed, and the tip of the spear is foreign companies moving production here. Recent video I'd mentioned how massive these incoming investments are. At the time it was $3 trillion, including $165 billion from Taiwan Semiconductor, $100 billion from Japan SoftBank, $500 billion from Apple, and $2 trillion combined from Dubai and Saudi Arabia. That number is now up to $5 trillion in announced deals. Last week, Trump said the real number is $8 trillion and counting. For perspective, pre-COVID gross private investment in the entire country was about $4 trillion. So Trump has already doubled that, maybe tripled it, in 3 months. That implies a massive boost in high-paying jobs. The Taiwan Semiconductor project in Arizona is projected to create 40,000 construction jobs. Multiply that by between 20 and 50 times for the other projects. The one concern on GDP had been consumer spending, with media hyping soft consumer surveys. In a recent video, I mentioned how these surveys are questionable since big moves are driven by partisanship. As in, people who hate Trump say the economy sucks, people who love him say it is grand. Well, the BEA just reported consumer spending is on fire, hitting 0.7% on the month, which is close to a 9% annualized gain in consumer spending. Finally, inflation, which also reported last week at flat, as in zero inflation for the second time in Trump's 3 months. Soaring investment and crashing inflation being just about the sweetest 4 words in economics. So Stocks brought to you by Unchained.com. Before Trump took office, I figured the economy would be a cage fight between Biden's recession overhang and Trump boosting investment, energy, and cutting regulation. I did not anticipate how bigly Trump's tariffs would boost investment. $5 trillion is monster numbers. As for the immediate future, all these front-run imports will likely show up next quarter as consumption or investment, delivering a big, beautiful GDP number even on paper. Meanwhile, those monster investment numbers will start taking pole positions, swamping any hits to paper GDP from government layoffs and mass deportations. Last week, a reporter asked Trump about the negative GDP print, and he said, quote, "Be patient, the boom is coming." So far, that's exactly what's happening. And if Congress gets its butt in gear on deregulation and tax cuts, it could go even faster. Read the rest with charts and all the gory details at profstandknowledge.com. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
Shout out to Mr. St. Ange. So here's some other numbers. So for April, non-farm payrolls up 177,000. Expected was 133,000. The unemployment rate 4.2%, same as consensus. Average hourly earnings are up 0.17%, 0.17%, or 6 cents, up to 36.06, $36.06. Over the year, average hourly earnings are up 3.77%. In April, private sector payrolls are up 167,000, and government payrolls were up 10,000. I believe this is all government, state, local. I'm pretty sure. Average work week unchanged. Labor force participation rate is at 62.6%. And then March payrolls were revised to 185,000, revised up 185,000. February was revised up 102,000. And then March unemployment stayed at 4.2%. So the numbers are all being underestimated, and they're getting revised up. Here's a big one. For the month of April, Native-born workers added 1.04 million jobs. Foreign-born workers subtracted 410,000 jobs. So you want to talk about self-deportations? Where do you think those self-deportations are showing up? There you go. 410,000 down in 1 month. Here's the trajectory. This dates back to 2019. Green is the foreign-born workers, and green is the native-born workers. Red is the foreign-born workers. And just realize the y-axis here, the inside y-axis goes with the green line, and the outside y-axis goes with the red line, and they're completely different scales. So it's kind of a silly graph, but additionally, the S&P 500, this was as of this afternoon, the S&P 500 has recovered all of Trump's Liberation Day losses. So remember, we had the greatest stock market collapse ever. Oh, it's all dying. Everything's going to hell. Ah! And here it is, already recovered. Trump's tariffs went into effect on April 2nd, with the market fully recovering in a month. $10 super chat from TC. He says, come on, bros. I'm hitting the local dive with a buddy for a bit, but let's hit the goal. Where are we at? We're at, less than a minute left on the goal. We need 2 more $10 super chats. We need 2 more $10 super chats for me to play my racism game. Got to test the racism. You guys got 35 seconds. I don't know if you're going to do it. I don't know. Can you prove me wrong? Here is former Toys R Us CEO Gerald Storch talking about inflation, and he makes an interesting comment in here about the tariffs.
Inflation as a whole has largely been driven by too much government spending and not enough supply. That will be remedied as we look to the future. Agricultural products are already in line. The tariffs are too insignificant. I know it sounds funny to say, but too insignificant in the size of the overall economy to be a major driver of inflation. We're going to be in great shape as we round the corner towards the holidays. Yeah. Inflation as a whole has largely.
It's so funny that there was a lot of people showed their ass with that the tariff thing, and there was a lot of people. This is in keeping with Jason's prediction about how there's going to be a lot of people who have seemed based, but they start showing their true colors. There was a lot of people who normally I would generally kind of respect or value their analysis, and they just lost their minds. Trump's chaos, and it's too much, and they're like the inner libertarian came out, and Trump's upsetting the whole system, and he's going to cause so much destruction, and this is just too much. And here we are a month later, and everything's falling into place. The press, of course, has to keep up. It's like Maryland man. We're gonna talk about him every possible opportunity that we get. We're just gonna keep bringing it up over and over and over again. The whole world stops while we debate what's going to happen with Maryland man. And look at it. Look at where they're going now. So Derek, Suitable Politic, another very good follow. He says, that's odd. I was told by the fake news that tariffs only affect the American consumer. But now Trump's punishing China for being awesome? This is a real headline from CBS. Are Trump's tariffs just punishing China for being good at what it does? I'm not even going to read it. It's not even, I would just be reading it to laugh at it, and I've got a whole bunch more stuff to do. But seriously, this is the point. So a month ago, if you were talking about, Trump's screwed, there's no way that China holds all the cards. He doesn't have a prayer. Why did he do this? He's so dumb. He's so arrogant. Well, a month later, the press is at the point where they're saying the tariffs are punishing China, and it's not fair. They're just punishing China for being good at what they for what they're good at. That ought to tell you what the truth was all along. And here, we've got to let our favorite mustachioed Gen X cigar smoker have his victory lap. Tom Luongo says, I know it's childish and churlish to say, I told you so, but I'm both a child and a churlish prick. So here, from Zero Hedge, S&P erases all Liberation Day losses as Beijing bends knee, mulls fentanyl offer to Trump. So this is an update from 12 Eastern today. U.S. equity markets extended gains this morning following a report from the Wall Street Journal that Beijing is considering ways to address the Trump administration's gripes over China's role in the fentanyl trade, potentially offering an off-ramp from hostilities to allow for trade talks to start. So, despite all the legacy media's claims that no talks were underway, Wall Street Journal reports that Chinese leader Xi Jinping's security czar, Wang Zhaohong, in recent days has been inquiring about what the Trump team wants China to do when it comes to fentanyl. In a visible shift in tone Friday, China's Commerce Ministry said it was weighing starting talks with the U.S. to halt a trade war, while expressing Beijing's wish for the Trump administration to, quote, show sincerity to talk. So basically, help us save face. Previously, the ministry had demanded that Washington slash its steep tariffs on China first as a condition for negotiations. So who's moving here? Who's bending the knee? Stocks surged further on the report, with the S&P now having erased all losses post-Liberation Day. So here was Liberation Day right here. Everything went, then all right back up to where it was before. China has quietly started to exempt some U.S. goods from tariffs that likely cover around $40 billion worth of imports, or around 24% of Chinese imports from the U.S. in 2024. So a quarter of Chinese imports from the U.S., China is now starting to exempt from tariffs in what looks like an effort to soften the blow of the trade war on its own economy. China is likely trying to mitigate damage to its economy by avoiding a collapse in key imports, DePippo said. The exemption shouldn't be interpreted as a signal to the U.S., as China has been quiet about its exemptions, working through business channels and avoiding public statements. Well, yes, of course they're avoiding public statements about it. While this move mirrors the shift by the Trump administration, exempting smartphones and other electronics from its own reciprocal tariffs, including the 145% levies on China, those U.S. exemptions apply to about $102 billion, or roughly 22% of U.S. imports from China last year. We suspect there is more behind this decision. As we highlighted just a week ago, China's already fragile economy faced a serious crisis from the tariff-driven cuts to supply of U.S. ethane and the potential for that to force mass plastics factory closures. We covered this last week on the show. The situation is dire for China's ethane crackers as they have no alternative to U.S. supply, said Manish Sejwal, an analyst at Rystad Energy AS, using an industry term for such facilities. Unless they're granted tariff exemptions, they may have to stop production or close shop. Well, guess what just happened? Buried deep among the 131 items is, you guessed it, industrial chemicals, which likely includes U.S. ethane supplies. Bloomberg reports that it's unclear where the list came from and it hasn't been officially confirmed, but at least half a dozen companies in China have been able to bring in goods from the list without paying tariffs, according to people familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified, discussing confidential information. No matter the reason, forced by factory closure crisis or simply goodwill, there are tentative signs the U.S.-China trade standoff could be shifting. The Chinese Commerce Ministry said on Friday it's assessing the possibility of trade talks with the U.S., giving a lift to equity markets. Quote, the U.S. has recently sent messages to China through relevant parties hoping to start talks with China. China is currently evaluating this. The timing of the tit-for-tat escalation and de-escalation is very similar to last time, though this time, the pain was far greater to prompt the walkbacks on both sides. So green here is Trump tariffs 1.0. This is tracking this is a terrible graph. I don't know what this is measuring. Does it say here? The list of exemptions is said to be dynamic and will be continuously adjusted depending on China's needs, according to people familiar with the matter. I have no idea what this is indicating. Let's see. It has dates on the bottom here. January 2025. So obviously Trump tariffs 1.0 would be probably, says 2025, but it's probably supposed to be like 2017. But I don't have any idea what this is supposed to be on the side. Okay. Hold on here. My dog is out scratching on the floor. Okay. Come back here. And then next article from Breitbart. Hundreds of Chinese workers protest as factories shut down due to Trump tariffs. Unemployment was already a big problem for China's faltering post-pandemic economy, particularly youth unemployment, And now analysts are predicting Trump's tariffs could wipe out more than 16 million jobs. Radio Free Asia on Tuesday quoted Goldman Sachs analysts who predicted communications, apparel, and chemical manufacturers would be especially hard hit. One of the biggest strikes and protest marches occurred last week at a factory that produces sporting goods. A company representative hastily hung up the phone when RFA called to ask about the current status of the labor dispute. Many of the protesting workers have grievances that predate even Trump's first round of tariffs in February. Unpaid back wages are a frequent complaint, often stretching back into 2024. Workers at a circuit board manufacturer in Sichuan said they have not received Social Security benefits since 2023. A group of construction workers in Inner Mongolia threatened last week to jump off the roofs of the buildings they've been constructing if their back wages were not paid. Thousands of workers at China's electric vehicle giant BYD walked off the job in March and April, angered by pay cuts and poor working conditions. The protesters said BYD reneged on promises made to its employees during corporate expansion. Ji Fang, a survivor of the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests, told RFA that Chinese businesses were in much worse shape than the regime in Beijing was willing to admit, so the blow of Trump's tariffs struck much harder than it predicted. Ji said conditions have grown steadily worse since the Wuhan coronavirus pandemic, which forced many businesses into a doom spiral of delaying payroll for as long as possible, then borrowing money to pay back wages once the fury of workers could no longer be contained. Some bosses even said they would rather go to jail than do anything, Ji said, alluding to the Chinese government's threats to arrest employers who fail to pay wages for more than 3 months. Chinese factory activity is currently experiencing its worst slump since December of 2023. Cargo shipments are down by up to 60%, while new export orders in April fell to their lowest level since the pandemic. Those estimates are all based off official government data, and since the Chinese government has a long history of fudging its numbers, the true situation is probably much worse. Capital Economics suggested on Tuesday that Beijing's numbers for the first quarter were overly optimistic, for example. China was already experiencing terminally low levels of consumer confidence before the tariff struck, so there's no great domestic market standing by to absorb the goods America is not importing. Other countries do not seem eager to sacrifice their own domestic industries to soak up a tidal wave of Chinese overstock at bargain basement prices. Beijing's attempts to defibrillate the morbid economy with stimulus shock paddles during the last months of the Biden administration were considered disappointing by investors. The next blow from the tariff war will hit China on Friday, when a new 120% levy hits packages that fall under the de minimis limit of $800 in value. Huge Chinese companies like Shein and Temu built their entire business model around taking orders via the internet and shipping small parcels of cheap goods directly to American consumers. Shoppers are discovering that tariff surcharges can more than double the prices from these Chinese outlets. Based on anecdotal reports, Temu seems determined to tell its customers exactly how much Trump's tariffs are costing them, while Shein is struggling to absorb the costs as quietly as it can. American businesses are taking damage from the trade war as well, but that could become another problem for China because those weak export orders are not going to perk up until American importers feel confident in placing big bets on Chinese manufacturing again. The harder China's retaliatory tariffs hit American companies, the longer it will be before China's ports begin humming with activity again. They seem to be really be stuck in a pickle over there. Chinese dictator Xi Jinping and his top officials remained defiant, but on Wednesday, Xi hinted that major policy changes could be coming to handle tariff damage. He did not say exactly what his government planned to do, besides creating more propaganda to accuse the United States of being a bully. During Wednesday's opening session of China's rubber stamp legislature, the National People's Congress, Premier Li Qiang, I don't speak Asian, okay, pledged to receive 5% GDP growth and create millions of new jobs despite the Trump tariffs. China's increasingly agitated workers will not be pleased if their government fails to deliver on those extravagant promises. Then big news in the domestic markets. First of all, this is from permitting.gov. Trump administration boosts domestic mineral production, adding 10 more critical mineral production projects to the federal permitting dashboard. Today, the Federal Permitting Improvement Steering Council announced the second installment of critical mineral production projects to be featured as Fast 41 transparency projects. The second batch of projects is part of an ongoing series of critical projects receiving the transparency of the federal permitting dashboard in response to President Trump's executive order, immediate measures to increase American mineral production. The Permitting Council is excited to grow our portfolio of critical mineral production projects with this latest tranche, says Manisha Patel, Permitting Council acting executive director. The transparency that these projects will receive as a result of being featured on the federal permitting dashboard will be transformative, allowing stakeholders across government and industry the ability to track the progress of these projects, ensuring a level of accountability and environmental review that is often missing from the traditional process. The chair of the National Energy Dominance Council submitted the second batch of critical minerals projects to the Permitting Council acting executive director in response to President Trump's executive order. The NEDC submitted the initial group of 10 projects on April 4, 2025, and they were added to the federal permitting dashboard on April 18th. This second batch is part of a continual process to provide these critical projects with the transparency afforded by Fast 41, and more projects are scheduled to be added in the coming weeks. Inclusion on the permitting dashboard as a transparency project makes the environmental review and authorization schedule for these vital mineral production projects publicly available and allows all of these projects to benefit from increased transparency. The public nature of the dashboard ensures that all stakeholders, from project sponsors and community members to federal agency leaders, have up-to-date accounting of where each project stands in the review process. This transparency leads to greater accountability, ensuring a more efficient process. There's many more that are still to be expected. Here's additional selected projects to include a whole list here. And then this, for those of you involved in or in any way tangentially associated with manufacturing, you may want to know about this. This is from the Small Business Administration, directly on SBA.gov. Manufacturing grants. SBA provides grants to help empower small manufacturers. These are not loans, these are grants. Empower to Grow, Manufacturing in America grant. The goal of this grant is to provide workforce development in key manufacturing industries such as timber, energy, aluminum, steel, digital, and automotive. SBA is looking for organizations that will provide technical proficiency and essential skills, including operating machinery, quality control, welding, utilizing industrial software, and workplace safety. Here's the eligibility. Be a for-profit or not-for-profit entity, including but not limited to small businesses, other than small businesses, trade and professional associations, and educational institutions. Be in existence continually for at least the past 3 years, and demonstrate experience providing hands-on manufacturing-related training and technical assistance to small businesses. The deadline to submit proposals electronically is May 12, 2025. The SBA will be hosting webinars to inform the public about the grants. Registrations required to attend. One of them was on Wednesday. The next one is Thursday, May 8. So any of you manufacturing boys out there, particularly anything timber, energy, aluminum, steel, digital, automotive, and it looks like it can be businesses or it can also be trade and professional associations or educational institutions. Small Business Administration's giving out monies. Go get your monies. Spread it around to anybody else who may need to know about it. $5 super chat from Rethuglican. He says, I'm curious what Ron Paul's reaction will be, him and his fat co-host, if Rand continues to be reduced in the public eye, him and Massey. Yeah, I mean, if I was Ron, I'd be telling Rand to get his shit together. I don't know if Ron needs to get his shit together. I don't listen to I don't listen to him at all. So I don't know what his take on all of this has been, but Rand has really just thoroughly beclowned himself. Just his whole behavior on this tariff thing has been a egregious disappointment. I'm disgusted with the man. Massey, to his credit, has been a little quieter on it, but Rand going all the way to the point of bringing this this thing up to a vote, and it's delicious that JD Vance was the one who broke the tie to kill it, but trying to assert Congress's authority over Trump's tariffs, Rand had such potential, and generally speaking, he has been just such a disappointment. Yes, spread the word about the grants. What's my wife saying here? She said, it's always so funny to hear Matt make the silly noises through the wall, then hear it on my delay, then again on Gaga's mega delay on full blast as she's falling asleep. Yeah. Oh, my sweet mother-in-law. Every time I'll finish the show and I'll go downstairs and I'll hear myself on a delay playing at full blast, and sometimes I'll be able to hear her. I can hear her breathing. She's sound asleep, listening to me talk. Love you, Gaga. Okay, let's talk about the Doge boys. I'm not going to play this entire thing, but I do have the link here for those of you who do want to watch the whole thing. Jesse Waters sat down inside Doge HQ. There's a 27-minute video here, his whole interview with the Doge team. And I've got a few selected clips. And at some point in here, we'll get to see big balls. So here's the first one.
I think the young folks of us have gotten email threats from reporters and the public alike. I think, speaking for myself, I dropped out of Harvard and came here to serve my country. And it's been unfortunate to see, lost friendships. Most of campus hates me now. But I think fundamentally, I hope people realize through conversations like this that reform is genuinely needed. And if there's one, I think this is important to say, if there's one group of people who really have a shot of success, it's the people here. You know, they're up until 2 a.m. Monday through Sunday. Doge does not recognize weekends. We're working all the time.
What inspired you to drop out of Harvard to do this?
You know, there's a lot of reform that's needed. I think the value of this and the impact here is so much more vast than anything you could learn in a classroom doing computer science.
And you guys are sleeping here, I'm hearing. You guys are up all night. You have this meeting at 10 o'clock every Wednesday?
We'll probably go back to work right after this.
Yeah.
You're going back to work after this?
Yes.
Right.
It's almost 11 o'clock.
So that's early. That's early.
It's early? Can I go to bed? That's an incredible work ethic. You guys should be really, really proud of yourself.
I can't help but think about Yarvin discussing the FDR administration, the Tennessee Valley Authority. They just brought all these young, like these are the guys that would normally wind up in Silicon Valley tech companies or something like that. Many of them have spent time in that world, and now they're being brought in for a project like this. And this is just, look at this here. Santiago Pliego. This is incredible to get a glimpse at these guys in action. Total command of their domains, well-spoken, direct, with a gravitas that can only emerge from working on a mission larger than oneself. Serious men. Look at these guys. This big balls right here. There he is. There's the man. So there's a couple other clips I've got here talking about some of the crazy stuff that they've uncovered while they're in there.
One of the, I think, extreme examples of non-accountability in some cases has occurred at some of the small agencies. I think the Inter-American Foundation, IAF, is one of the agencies we visited where, they get $50 million a year, congressional money, to give grants. These are things like, alpaca farming in Peru, improving
That's a real example.
Yes, that's the real description. Improving the marketability of peas in Guatemala.
Really?
Fruit jam. Yes.
What? Yeah.
So you might expect, in the private sector, a nonprofit to give, 80 to 90% of their money to grantees. In the case of IAF, that was 58%. So the other half goes towards management, travel.
What we're to find exactly, I mean, to Ethan's example is that even if you agreed with supporting alpaca farmers in Peru, well, actually, most of the money never made it out of D.C.
Mm-hmm.
It's going into the pockets of people in the neighborhood.
What percentage?
And they didn't even get to Peru.
Right. So what percentage do you think doesn't even get to the destination it's supposed to?
I believe the GAO estimates, so this is not our estimate, I believe it was on the order of only 10 to 15 cents on the dollar actually gets to the end recipient, whether you agree with that cause or not.
So they're just stealing the money before it even gets anywhere.
There's layers of stealing. So there's the first layer of stealing, second layer of stealing, third layer of stealing.
Subcontractor.
You start peeling the onion. Yeah, exactly. Contractor, subcontractor. It's like peeling an onion. And then maybe, and sometimes it's zero. Just flat, you get to the bottom of the onion, there's nothing there.
So maybe no one got a sex change in Guatemala.
It's possible that no one got a sex change in Guatemala.
I've just, we didn't make the goal, but I just started another smaller one. Five TL super chats. It's $5 or more. If we get 5 of those, then we'll do the racism test. YouTube would not let me put racism test in as the as what we accomplish as the whatever the results of achieving the goal. I tried to put racism test and it wouldn't let me, so I just put ethno-guesser. This story here is rather crazy. When the Doge team went inside the U.S. Institute for Peace, quite the quite the name.
Oh, Nate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's an agency, a small agency called the United States Institute of Peace. It's definitely the agency we had the most fight at. We actually went into the agency and found that they had loaded guns inside of their headquarters. Institute for Peace.
I mean, any given company, any given organizational name is going to be kind of be the opposite of the title.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was by far the least peaceful agency that we've worked with, ironically.
Of course.
Additionally, we found that they were spending money on things like private jets, and they even had a $130,000 contract with a former member of the Taliban. This is real. We don't encounter that in most agencies.
Yeah.
What was the money going to the Taliban for?
So it was a contractor. They received $130,000 for generic services. And to Elon's point, there was not actually a clear description of what the contractor services were for. But
was it for opium?
Unclear.
Or weapons?
Or nothing.
Or nothing.
or abroad.
Or nothing.
And you naturally have to ask the question, well, how did we get here? Like when the country was founded, there were only 4 agencies. Today there are over 400. So there's been a 100x increase in the number of agencies since the founding of the nation. And thanks to President Trump, he's now signed 2 executive orders to start to reduce the number of agencies in the government, and the Institute of Peace was one of them, which is why our team went in to try and understand what was going on. And that's when we found all of the craziness, like the weapons in their armory. We found the payments to the Taliban.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. They try to hide the evidence.
Right. So just a few hours after we got into their headquarters, we found that their chief accountant had actually deleted over 1 terabyte of accounting records from several years. So you'd have to ask the question, well, why would somebody do that? The Doge team, fortunately, was able to recover that data with the help of a few great employees at the Institute of Peace.
The chief accountant deletes 1 terabyte of data. The Doge boys are like, no worries. We'll find it. Absolute chads, man.
And I think the most troubling thing was they received $55 million a year from Congress, and any money that went unspent, instead of returning that to Congress, they would sweep it into a private bank account, which had no congressional oversight. And that's what they would use to fund things like events at their headquarters and the private jets. And so I think it's a great example because most Americans don't know what's going on at a lot of these smaller agencies, and this is, I think, the most extreme case of some of the wasteful spend that we're finding.
So the agencies are hiding money from you. They're sending it to the Taliban. They have loaded weapons in the department buildings.
At the Institute of Peace.
At the Institute of Peace.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this is a cover-up when you guys roll in.
This one, yes, a cover-up. Yes.
It's a cover-up.
They did delete a vast amount of financial information. That's really a definition of a cover-up.
Isn't that illegal to delete evidence?
Yes.
Shred documents?
It is. It's certainly illegal to delete accounting records that that Congress would certainly want to know where the congressionally appropriated funds are going from taxpayers.
When you catch them going Hillary style on their computers, do you refer this to the Department of Justice?
In this case, we did refer the evidence in the accounting example to the FBI and DOJ. And we were proud to do that. So yes, we did.
Resistance has.
So proud of these boys. My wife says the Asian guy kind of looks like Musk if Musk was photocopying his face and smashed it on the glass. If you squint, you'll see it, ironically. There is a game that I will never attempt to compete with my wife in, and I recommend the rest of you do not either. That guy looks like, and then come up with some sort of really creative, bizarrely, perfectly descriptive example. Just nothing better. There was a guy on the soccer team we follow that he's Jorgen Skjelvik. He was from I think he's from Norway, and she said that he looks like he likes to sit in the park and talk to birds. And he has these kind of like dead, empty eyes. And I laid on the floor and laughed for like half an hour at that. This is her superpower. One of many. Here's Big Balls. You guys ready? You want to meet Big Balls? Here he is.
Who's Big Balls?
It's me. That should be obvious.
Why do they call you Big Balls?
I just said it as my LinkedIn username.
Okay.
Well, people on LinkedIn take themselves like super seriously, and they're pretty adverse to risk. And I was like, well, I want to be neither of those things. So I said it, and honestly, I didn't even think anyone would notice.
He literally set Big Balls as his LinkedIn username, and he's like, I don't think anyone's even going to notice. And then he becomes the most famous Zoomer on the planet. Broccoli hair occupied government.
Yeah.
So what do you
LinkedIn
do?
is so cringe.
What does Big Balls do?
Right now, I'm working on some payment computer stuff. So one of our initiatives is to root out fraud and waste. And to do that, we started looking at the payment computers. And as mentioned earlier, like there is no accounting of what payments actually go to in the payment computer.
Look at that Chiron. Big Balls roots out fraud and waste. I love living in 2025, man.
So like you look at a specific line item, like $20 million. You're like, okay, well, what is this money going to? And for the majority of payment systems, it's like, well, we don't really know. And
yeah, they're like, what? That would be the response.
Is this the most basic responses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the most common response.
What do you say when people just say, I don't know?
Well, it's a huge cause for concern because like the upstream thing, which is distributing the money, literally has no checks and no accountability to the actual American taxpayer. So it's a huge vector for fraud, waste, and abuse.
Do these people not respect taxpayer money?
I mean, there's no incentive to if you work in the government. I think the incentives will always decide the outcomes.
Yes.
Do you guys feel like you're putting yourself at risk by doing this because you're stirring up?
The incentives will always decide the outcomes. Look at our young kings, man.
So much hostility by these people ripping us off?
100%. Well, we don't need to speculate about that. You can see online in the protests that they make that very clear. I mean, I've been hanged in effigy many times. And there have been people that have actively advocated at these violent protests for my death. And have also advocated for the death of the people at Doge.
I think the young folks of us.
All right, and then our last Doge clip here. A $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education.
Yeah.
There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, etc. And so the one change that Doge made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
yes,
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore. Huh, that's interesting.
We were renting Caesar's Palace.
Yes, they were like basically partying on the taxpayer money.
Stadiums.
Yes.
Leasing stadiums.
Leasing stadiums.
For what?
For parties, basically.
For parties.
Yes.
That's a big party.
It's a big party.
You'd think if you were stealing, you'd start small.
They do start small. But then what happens is over the years, so generally the fraud starts out small and they try to hide it. But then year after year, if nobody stops the fraud, it gets more and more brazen. And every year it gets bigger until they're literally renting out stadiums. Like
What's that, $1 million to rent out a stadium?
Fraud in flagrante delicto, okay? We're talking at scale.
This is driving me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
A $4 billion COVID fund. And all they say is, before you draw on this fund, you got to upload a receipt and done. Twilight Knight says, I'm not all up on all the news, but haven't the liberals given up this ground? I don't see any defenses anymore. They moved on to the Maryland MS-13 gangster. Yeah, they haven't been. This is part of the full blitzkrieg of the first 100 days is they only have so many things that they can hone in on, and they've been dominated with, Trump is being mean to China by making Americans pay for his tariffs or something like that, and Maryland man. I think those are the causes du jour at the moment. All right, let's get a little update on the European story. So first of all, Got to get a little more JD Vance in this episode. So Marco Rubio says Germany just gave its spy agency new powers to surveil the opposition. That's not democracy, it's tyranny in disguise. What is truly extremist is not the popular AfD, which took second in the recent election, but rather the establishment's deadly open border immigration policies that the AfD opposes. Germany should reverse course. This is coming from the Secretary of State and also the National Security Advisor. So this is the chief American diplomat saying Germany should reverse course. That's a warning. This isn't a casual statement by a Republican politician. This is a warning from the chief foreign policy officer of the United States. And J.D. Vance, the vice president, says the AfD is the most popular party in Germany and by far the most representative of East Germany. Now the bureaucrats try to destroy it. The West tore down the Berlin Wall together, and it has been rebuilt, not by the Soviets or the Russians, but by the German establishment. The vice president is calling the current German establishment Soviets. He's calling them commies. This administration knows who the enemies are. I think in the next episode that Jason and I do, the third episode of Network Armageddon Electric Boogaloo, we're going to be breaking down some comments from a podcast that I listened to, The Bitcoin Layer. It's a very good podcast to follow. They had a conversation with a guy named, I believe his name is Matt Dimes, something like that. Anyways, professional bond trader. And it was fascinating listening to him. They're talking about the Eurodollar and everything. And his assessment, just looking at the numbers and everything, his assessment was that the trade war between U.S. and China was not about which one of them was going to bend first. It was which third party is going to crack first. And he said the third party that looks like they're going to crack first is Europe. Yes, the EUSSR, as Longo says. So here's another fantastic thread from Mr. Ian Burlingame. And as soon as I finish this episode here, I'm going to be going over to listen to the recent collaboration between Tom Luongo and Ian Burlingame, because I've heard so many good things about it. So Ian says, the evolution of the financialist kill chain, from Venice to Amsterdam to London to Wall Street. Ever wonder how global finance evolved from medieval Venice to today's Wall Street? It's a tale of power, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of control. Let's dive into the history of the financialist kill chain. Venice in the 13th to 16th centuries was the birthplace of modern banking. Venetian bankers invented tools like bills of exchange and promissory notes, laying the groundwork for today's financial systems. These innovations weren't just about trade, they were the seeds of the financialist kill chain, a system of debt, speculation, and economic dependency that would come to dominate the world. But Venice had a problem. Its location made it vulnerable to invasions, especially from the Ottoman Empire. As trade routes shifted, so did the need for a safer financial hub. Enter Amsterdam in the 16th and 17th centuries. With its strategic location and naval power, it became the new financial capital. The Dutch East India Company, or VOC, was born here, revolutionizing global trade. The VOC didn't just trade spices, it spread the financialist kill chain worldwide. Through colonial ventures, it imposed debt and economic dependency on nations, embedding the kill chain into new territories. But the VOC had a bigger plan: to undermine hereditary rulers who stood in the way of their financial dominance. They promoted liberal democracy as a tool to replace monarchs with elected officials more easily influenced by money. And here you see where all this stuff all ties in together. The structure of government, the structure of the economy, the priorities of the people, the ability of the people to attain their highest ends. All of these things are all intertwined. As Amsterdam's power grew, so did its vulnerabilities. The small size of the Netherlands and threats from larger powers prompted another shift, this time to the city of London. After the Glorious Revolution of 1688, Dutch financial expertise flooded into England. The Bank of England was established in 1694, centralizing financial power and issuing government debt. When William of Orange, tied to Dutch financial networks, became King of England, it signaled a new era. The English crown, once a symbol of hereditary power, was now under the influence of the VOC's financial playbook. Liberal democracy, championed by the VOC, served to remove hereditary princes who resisted financial control. Elected officials, often indebted to financial backers, were easier to manipulate. Through the Bank of England and the British Empire, the financialist kill chain spread globally. Debt-financed wars and colonial expansion, enslaving nations to perpetual repayment cycles. The liberalism and this financialist kill chain are one and the same. The fact that liberalism, in promoting so-called individual sovereignty, undermined and destroyed the hereditary ruling structures was a feature. This is a feature, not a bug. The reason that liberalism was conceived and proliferated was because it was distinctly in the interests of the merchant class. And this is derogatory. Liberalism has always been a subversive force designed to dissolve the things that make a nation, that hold it together. After World War II, with Europe in ruins, the financial center shifted again, this time to Wall Street. The dollar's dominance in institutions like the IMF cemented America's financial supremacy. Today, the financialist kill chain is embedded worldwide. Nations are trapped in debt, speculation drives markets, and economic dependency is the norm. But how did we get here? One key strategy was cultural homogenization. By promoting individualism in global markets, national identities were eroded, making populations more susceptible to financial control. Debt remains the ultimate tool of control. Nations borrow heavily, locking themselves into cycles of repayment that benefit the financial elite. This system, born in Venice, perfected by the VOC, now rules the world. The removal of hereditary princes was crucial. Unlike elected officials, monarchs had long-term interests tied to their nations. Shout out to Mr. Curtis Yarvin. Removing them cleared the path for short-term financial gains. Today, we see the legacy of this system in every economic crisis, every austerity measure, every nation struggling under debt. The financialist kill chain continues to tighten its grip. From Venice to Wall Street, the financialist kill chain has shaped our world. Understanding its history helps us see how financial power operates today. What do you think? Has this system served humanity, or is it time for a change? And then he's got several articles here that elaborate in more detail on this thread. I'm not going to read them, but again, Kingfield Substack, go look at the notes, and all the links that I went through today will be there. Right down toward the bottom, you'll see this one. I'd recommend going and reading these articles. First one is Venetians, Fathers of the Financialist Kill Chain. Second is the evolution of Venetian bankers and the removal of hereditary princes. Third is how liberal democracy is an artificial construct of the Dutch East India Company. So one of the points he made in here was where was it here? It was right here. One key strategy was cultural homogenization. By promoting individualism in global markets, national identities were eroded, making populations more susceptible to financial control. Part of this was also things like feminism and the Civil Rights Act they all fit into this frame. These are all movements that were ultimately motivated and funded and put forth for the sake of dissolving ties between people and homogenizing and egalitarianizing everyone. And so now you get a situation where you have we don't even have the nuclear family anymore. We got reduced down to the nuclear family. Then the nuclear family got dissolved and spread apart. So you can get one single family, and instead of everyone, the whole family, all living in like a single property, every single member of the family has their own home, and they pay their own property taxes, and they buy all their own groceries, and they get all of their own car loans, and they get all of their own mortgages, and they have all of their own individual expenses and individual subscriptions, and everyone's getting carved off and atomized, having all the ties that bind them together dissolved, undermining tradition, perverting and degenerating culture. to serve the financialized world. So what's the alternative? Play a video for you, and then I'm going to read another thread. Build a strong family.
Well, the biggest difference between your family and a wealthy family is something that's been forgotten now for about 3 generations. And that is that the wealthy families band and bind themselves together to build wealth. But now we've been programmed by media, and in fact, the same wealthy people that don't want competition, that we should strike out on our own, that we should do it together, then leave family, let them fend for themselves. You're an independent, you're on your own, you're powerful that way. No, you're weakened that way. How does that make any sense that you're powerful by yourself? Only together, in partnership, in community, in family. Does that make any sense that we can band together and win in this very, very difficult game called commercial life? And is
Apes together strong.
it any wonder that all the mega rich came from family money? Some of these families have been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, generations of wealth that are handed down. It kind of doesn't matter whether it's the corporate structure method or the trust method or the waterfall method. It's that they've all banded together. And some of you are like, I hate my family. Well, that's your personal problem that you should probably solve that or get yourself a new family, because it's so impossible for the average person to get ahead by themselves. But with a family together, it doesn't have to be your family, but in a family environment, that's when you multiply your chances of massive success for not just you, but for them and your entire community.
A thread. This is from David Hinsey. U.S. shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Japan, rice paddies to rice paddies in 3 generations. Scotland, the father buys, the son builds, the grandchild sells. Why 90% of family wealth is lost by the 3rd generation, and why that means it's time to start thinking like kings again. In past ages, it was not uncommon for a family to be wealthy for decades. While there were peaks and troughs in the family's wealth, the concept of a family's wealth lasting for upwards of 3 generations was not only a familiar one, it was the desired outcome. Constant turmoil and warfare disrupted family wealth building, and yet the success rate of wealth transferal from one generation to the next was far greater than in the modern era. Medieval families mostly lost wealth through war or famine. Modern families mostly lose wealth through bad planning, lack of family unity, and the lack of heir education. That's heir as in the heir apparent. $68 trillion in family wealth will pass to heirs and charities over the next 25 years. This could signal a meaningful and dramatic turning point. The younger, more active generation could boldly deploy capital in exciting ways that would stimulate economic growth, create beautiful and lasting art and architecture, and strengthen both national and local identity while doing so. Unfortunately, this is unlikely to happen. The numbers tell the story. 90% of family wealth dissipates by the 3rd generation. 60% of unsuccessful wealth transfers result from a lack of trust and communication among family members. 20% of failed wealth transfers are due to unprepared heirs. 15% of unprepared families have no wealth mission. Sensing the lack of preparation in their heirs, many of the wealthy have decided to go the route of heavily restricted trusts, foundations, or simply giving all of their money to charity. Their worry regarding the lack of preparation of their heirs has led to a low-trust, pseudo-stewardship model. This is an irony given that the fault for the lack of prepared heirs resides entirely with those same patriarchs of the family. The best solution to this problem is already long past implementation for the current wealth transfer. In previous ages, kings would bring their sons with them to affairs of state. A crown prince's life would be heavily structured from a young age. He would not merely fall into kingship, he was trained for it. This is what those currently building wealth should be purposing to do. Musk and Vance have brought forward this notion into the public consciousness in a palpable way as they involve their children directly in the work. For those families who are nearing the time of wealth transfer, they need a different option, a best alternative to the slow, steady mentorship that should have taken place. The current recommendation of financial and estate planners is to very carefully sketch out how the company has grown, the totality of the values that lead them to success, and the vision for what the assets should accomplish. The plan should be so thorough that a lawyer could come along at any point and see precisely where the children have varied from the wishes of the parents and hold the children to the course staked out by the parents. This seems a fine strategy for the first generation of wealth holders to the second generation, but what about the third generation? Even though much of the structural and procedural material can be documented thoroughly, does this create active and bold leaders of future family endeavors, or passive men reliant upon a system and unwilling to push themselves? Strategic multi-generational plans must be married to a family mythos to create truly impactful long-term family success. The stories that formed the first generations must be preserved and amplified for future generations. The Plantagenets were not a dynasty of kings who ruled England successfully for 3 centuries because of a carefully written plan by one of their forebears, but rather were guided by a family mythos that bound each king to the previous king and to an overarching guiding purpose. Family stories matter at some level to every family. However, to those who have built truly great things, the family story is not only nice to have, but necessary for any future lasting success. This is why folktale media exists, not just to create excellent personal documentaries, but to remind future generations of their family origin and what has caused the success they enjoy. Banger thread. We have our own plans for great arts, great documentaries, the production of content that honors and reflects and promotes heritage American culture. Many things coming down the pike. For now, I give you the Astrolabe. I give you EWBSX, the Cyberbully. Download the app on the iTunes or on the Apple or the Android store. Go to ewbsx.app, see the website. Go join the King Pilled Discord, kingpilled.com. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here. Hit the like button on your way out. We still got 93 watching and only 61 likes, so you guys got to click that like button. Smash it. And if you're listening on the podcast version later on, this is normally a YouTube and X stream, but I do upload the podcast audio via Substack. So there's a King Pilled Substack you can subscribe to get all the links that I discussed today. And please do, if you're listening to the podcast, then leave us a 5-star rating and review. Help us spread the word. What is it that Jason says? Let the people know. Let the people know. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for showing up for this late lab going deep into the night. We've had almost 700 people watching and just past 1 p.m. So I'm going to go listen to Tom Luongo and Ian Burlingame. I recommend you guys do the same. Have a great weekend. And I will see you guys back on Monday for another episode of the Astrolabe. Until then, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania